Am I overreacting for wanting to cut off my family after they went to my fiance's workplace to expose her? I, 24M, have been with my fiance, 25F, for 6 years, and we're planning to get married in the spring of 2025. My fiance and my family have always had a strained relationship, but I thought things were improving, until this week. My sister, 26F, and her boyfriend, 25M, only visit once or twice a year, so I was excited to see them over the holidays one evening. My fiancé and I went to my parents' house for dinner and games. She had a couple of drinks, I stayed sober to drive, and was a little emotional because we'd recently had to put down her childhood pet. My family was supportive when she shared about it, and the evening seemed to go well. At one point, she got an email from work, and the conversation briefly turned to what she does for a living. She works in an office. The night ended fine, and we planned to return the next day. The next morning, as we were heading back to my parents' house, I got a text from my sister saying they were in my city, which is over an hour away. Confused, I replied, WTF. Why would you guys do that? But got no response. When we got to my parents' house, I tried calling them, no answer. Finally, I called my sister's boyfriend, and he answered. That's when I learned they had gone to my fiance's workplace, questioned her co-workers, and discovered that she doesn't work there. She works in the office, not on the floor. He, and my family, accused her of lying about her work, why she left her last job, and about her getting hit by a car, and told me I shouldn't marry her. They also wanted me to provide evidence to make it worse. I had him on speakerphone, so my fiancé heard everything. I was furious but tried to stay calm. I defended her, hung up, and decided we needed to leave. I went back to my parents' house, grabbed our things, and left. Now, we're at home trying to process everything. I'm beyond upset that my family disrespected my fiancé and crossed such a huge boundary by going to her workplace and harassing her coworkers. I'm thinking about cutting contact with them, but I keep wondering if I'm overreacting. Is this something I should try to do? Relevant comments. OOP clarifies where his fiancé works. Reply, here is some clarification. Her work has 2 separate locations, one office, where she works, and one retail, where my family harassed people. My fiancé told them the company name and they just assumed they only had the retail location, and it wasn't just my sis and her BF, it was also my parents. Commenter 1, info, is your family really this silly? I am almost positive that jobs can't just tell random that someone works there. What if the random is a stalker? This is so weird. Why did they even do this? Is there missing context that explains driving an hour to do an employment check when it quite literally is none of their business? Nor. Reply, they are just this silly. Sadly, they have been like this every time I've dated someone. They just took it way too far this time. Update. My family investigated my fiancé's job and called her a liar, January 14, 2025, 2 weeks later. I apologize for the delay in providing an update, just needed to collect my thoughts. If you want to see the previous post you can check my profile. I don't know how to work Reddit. My fiancé and I are still together and moving forward with our plans to get married. My sister and her BF have gone back home, and they're officially uninvited to the wedding, so now I'm back to searching for a best man. We've also gone no contact with them. I also sent a long text to my parents the day after everything went down, and they never replied at this point. I don't even know if they're going to show up to the wedding. In the past, we attempted to set boundaries with my mother, because she's nosy ASF, and that greatly upset her, which should have been the first red flag. Unfortunately, my fiancée did end up losing her position at work, which has been incredibly frustrating. We haven't told my parents or any other family other than her parents, who have been very supportive through all of this, and I'm not sure if we will for a while, as it would mean talking to them. Thank you to everyone that has been supportive. We're taking things one step at a time and focusing on what's important. Each other. Sorry for ending it so cringy. Relevant comments. Why did his fiancée lose her job? Reply, they caused a huge scene that made the workers uncomfortable. She was still in the probationary period, and they didn't want people that would bring drama. Stories number 2. Am I the jerk refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding? So, here's the situation. I, 28M, have a sister, 26F, who is getting married in a few months. We've always had a bit of a rocky relationship growing up. She was the golden child, always getting what she wanted. And I often felt like my needs and accomplishments were overlooked in comparison. This became even more apparent when we both started getting older, and I noticed that whenever she had a problem or wanted something, it was always expected that I'd be there to support her, even when it was inconvenient for me. Now, she's planning this huge wedding, like, really extravagant. She's talking about a destination wedding, fancy venues, a designer dress, the whole works. She's already racked up a huge bill, and a couple of weeks ago, she came to me asking for a loan of $10,000 to help cover some of the costs. She mentioned how my other sibling, who has a lot more money than I do, had already agreed to contribute, and it's just expected that I'll do the same. Here's the thing, I don't have that kind of money lying around, and I've been working hard to pay off student loans and save for my own future. I didn't feel comfortable dipping into my savings for something that I feel is, frankly, a bit excessive. I politely told her I couldn't afford it, but she became really upset and said that family helps each other out, and that I should be there for her, especially since she helped me when I was in a tough spot a couple of years ago. I had a health issue that set me back financially. I tried to explain that while I appreciated her past help, I'm not in a position to help with her wedding, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect me to give such a large sum. She got really angry and started telling the rest of the family that I was being selfish and unsupportive. Now, most of my relatives are siding with her, saying I should just make it work for family. I'm feeling really conflicted. I know it's her big day, but I don't think I should have to sacrifice my financial stability for it. Am I the jerk for refusing to help pay for her wedding? Update: am I the jerk for refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding? First of all, I want to thank everyone for your feedback on my initial post. I've been reading through all of the comments and trying to take in the advice and perspectives. I honestly didn't expect the response to be so overwhelming, but it's been really helpful in sorting through my own feelings about this situation. I wanted to share an update since things have progressed since I posted. After I turned down my sister's request for the $10,000 loan, things did not go well. She was furious, and as I mentioned before, she told the rest of the family that I was being selfish and unsupportive. At first, it was mostly just her and a couple of other relatives siding with her. But the situation quickly escalated. My mom in particular has been really pressuring me to just help out, because family sticks together, and it's for her big day. It's been really uncomfortable, and honestly, the guilt trip has been non-stop. I still stand by my decision, though I'm not in a position to hand over that kind of money, and I'm really focused on my own financial stability. I've been working hard to pay off debt and save up for my own future goals. That said, I did offer a compromise. I told her I could contribute in a more reasonable way, like helping with smaller expenses, decorations, or maybe a few $100s, rather than giving her a huge loan. But she was not happy with this and said it wasn't enough. The situation with the family has gotten tense. Some of my relatives, especially on my dad's side, are more understanding of my position, but a lot of others are still on my sister's side. There's been a fair amount of pressure to step up and support her, but I'm holding firm. I also realized I have some deeper feelings of resentment toward my sister that I hadn't fully processed before. Growing up, it always felt like she was the golden child, and I was the one who had to work harder for everything, so this whole situation has just been a reminder of that dynamic. I guess I'm still processing some of that old tension, and it's making this situation feel even more complicated. In the end, I've decided that I'm not going to let guilt or family pressure dictate my choices. I can't afford the loan she's asking for, and I don't think it's fair to expect me to compromise my financial goals for her wedding. I've tried to be clear with her, but at this point, I'm just trying to navigate things with as much peace as possible. Thanks again for your advice and support. It's really helped me stick to my decision. Stories number 3. My 37F, BF, 40, uninvited me to Christmas but wants me to leave expensive gifts. If you look at my post history, I escaped a violent man a while ago and got back with an ex who was cold but at least not violent, but is lazy and passive, and there was too much family drama. He has 2 kids, 8 and 10 now. I am back in the drama. He also never told me he loved me. But that is beside the point. His kid's mom has always been awful to me, and he never stands up for me. We broke up when she screamed at me when I came with him to pick up the kids, threw me out. And he didn't say anything. It was literally my first interaction with this woman. There is no history that I know of. I don't recall ever meeting this woman, 39F, before I dated Phil, and to my knowledge, I have no friends in common with her except my hairstylist, who is a nice woman. She honestly freaked me out, coming at me screaming at our first meeting. They have been divorced 7 years, so it's not like it's new. Anyway, we are back together, and initially I was invited to his Christmas dinner. I grew up in a cult and have no family since my disabled mother died. He knows this now. BM is insisting that he cannot see the kids at all if I am there, so he asked that I find something else to do on Christmas while we only recently got back together. We were together for a year before that, but again, no, I love you, and I felt more like a friend to him. Sometimes I wondered if he's gay and I was his beard. He doesn't drive, so asked me to take him to the mall to shop for gifts. I bought expensive gifts for his kids. He wants me to take him grocery shopping and leave the gifts for his kids, and leave my dog so they can play with her, but then go away until they are gone. I have a friend who kindly invited me, so we are going to hang out. And he says I am being dramatic and selfish when I tell him I am just going to get my money back for the gifts. Should I return the gifts or not? Update: thank you all for the kind comments, and really, the unkind comments were helpful by showing me what kindness looks like. To answer people's questions, I have only been free of my controlling, narcissistic mother for 4 years, even though we escaped the cult 10 years ago, so I am really still learning to cope. I am in therapy, but my therapist's focus has been to help me build and keep relationships with people, so she tends to explain how to see things from the other person's perspective. Her suggestion was that I can leave, but also maybe have empathy for Phil's lack of EQ and grow a thicker skin. I might need a better therapist. I was raised to believe I am worthless and don't deserve kindness. It has taken 3 years of therapy just to have the confidence to make friends and date at all. I told Phil that I am taking the gifts back and he has been begging me to give him another chance. I am working on the strength to walk away. Notable comments. For goodness sake, you are not ready to be in a relationship. You need time to build your self-respect. Ultimate pragmatist. Please break up with Phil. You deserve so much better. If he has keys to your home, changed your locks ASAP. Please protect your dog as well. He might try to guilt you into giving your dog to his kids, or he might ask you to let your dog stay with them a few nights every other week, and then they will not return your dog. And if he has keys to your place, he might try to dognap your dog. He has nerve to ask you to send your dog over for Christmas, but not allowing you to stay. It's absurd, disrespectful, and downright cruel. Return all Christmas gifts. He's using you as an ATM. He's going to take all the credit for gifts you bought. He is not going to gift his kids anything. He's depending upon you and your generosity and thoughtfulness. Sadly, I would not be surprised if he did not get you a gift. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be valued as a person. You deserve to be loved and cared for. You deserve someone who will protect, defend, and stand up for you. You deserve to be a priority. You deserve someone who will love you unconditionally and be grateful to have you in their life. You do not deserve this chuckle fuck who is taking you for granted and taking advantage of you. He has shown you are not a priority. He has shown more concern for his ex. He is showing you who he is. He is showing you that you are not important to him. Please listen to his actions. Boo boo kitty cat 1. Bizarre that you are with someone who told you he's never loved you and you consider that beside the point. Actually, that is very much the driver of your whole dynamic. TBH, I couldn't read beyond that. You need to aim higher in relationships than simply not violent. Exes are exes for a reason. Margie Gunderson 70. Why would you give 1 ounce of credibility to a dude who calls you dramatic and selfish while acting like he's been taxidermies in front of his screaming ex? Stop wasting your energy, time and money on this man. He has picked his lifetime drama, and it is her let them go be broke messes together. I bet you $1 million that if you cut this dude off and spent that same care and money on yourself instead, you would feel amazing and your self-esteem would skyrocket. Hot Prize 217. Update. I was shocked at how everyone said BF is wrong. I really thought most people would be team BM and tell me I'm awful for not cooperating with being asked to leave expensive gifts and my dog for my BF's kids on Christmas, but leave the house, as I am not allowed because that is what most of my friends, okay, I have 5 friends, told me. They told me relationships are work and compromise and that the BM and babies must always come first, even suggested I help cook dinner for them. Most of my friends are actually my late mom's friends, women over 60. I started therapy when I was cripplingly shy, and to defend my therapist, it only thanks to her that I stopped sitting alone in my house totally isolated and learning to connect with other people. While I appreciate the suggestion to be alone for a while, I have been super isolated most of my life and dating again was actually huge progress for me that we worked on for months. I told my therapist that Phil crossed a line and I don't want to save relationships with him or my friends, I want to improve my self-esteem. Her emphasis has always been on avoiding isolation at all costs, and learning to endure other people's imperfections. She agreed that this Christmas incident was really bad. I am still processing all this. I am surrounded by people who encourage me to be a doormat and I am still shocked at what others thought. I really thought Phil and BM were right and 48 hours is not enough time to process that maybe my whole worldview is totally messed up. I went to my friend Mary's house and realized that she's maybe my only real friend. She didn't judge, told me Phil is nuts, and we had a great time with her family. I left my dog with a neighbor since her oldest is nonverbal and can be unsafe with animals. I sent him a Venmo request for the money I spent on gas and gifts and he paid it. Phil threw BM out at 2 p.m. and begged me to come home. I got my dog back from the neighbor, took out the cheapest gifts and he made his kids thank me and play with the presents, which felt very awkward as he tried to beg them to engage with me while they were on their phones. We hung out with his kids though for an hour. BM came back and refused to get out of her car. Phil is now telling me he loves me, wants to marry me, etc. I don't know what to do. I have been reading non-stop on narcissistic abuse these past few days. I am seeing that Phil is just like my mom, and that this is maybe what she did, hoovering. But again, I am fighting to stop being totally isolated, which I did for years after leaving the cult. I had no friends, never dated. It's laughable the number of people who accused me of desperately needing a man. Phil is my first boyfriend, and we met when I was a 31-year-old virgin with no friends. So, yes, being alone is grand, but I have been alone all my life and fought hard to stop wanting to be alone. Learning to talk to people outside of work topics, have social skills, etc. has been a huge battle. I am not autistic, but I read that way because after age 7, I was the only kid left in our cult/commune and I have no social skills and prefer to be alone to an unhealthy degree. I don't know what to do. Maybe Phil grew a spine, maybe it's hoovering. I am standing up to him though and looking at finding new friends and hanging more with Mary, who said I am always welcome at her house. Notable comments. Yeah, relationships are all about compromise, but when the compromise is all on your side, it's just not worth it. Now your BF is love bombing you. Take a step back, then take an even bigger step back from this guy. You deserve better than him. Perfect day 34-31. There is a huge difference between isolating and being alone. You can be alone and still engage with the world. None of these people love you. They are using you. They think they can manipulate you, and they're right, because you're operating from a place of being conditioned to trust people and ignore red flags. Right now, honestly, it sounds like you need to live alone, engage in a variety of light-hearted activities that allow you to be around people without huge emotions attached, art classes, acting classes, a D&D group, etc., journal a lot, work on developing a master plan for your life, and start to implement those changes. It's lovely to be in a relationship, but I heard a therapist say, you need to clean house before introducing new furniture into it. You can't put the couch where you want it until you clean the shit off the floor. Clean house first mentally and spiritually, and then work on recognizing healthy relationship dynamics. Your life on its own without other complications attached has value and takes priority, especially when escaping your background. Take some time to explore the world and figure out what you want, and I guarantee it'll be much harder to let yourself put up with this sort of treatment. Thin, Policy 8127. Have you considered looking into local clubs/hobbies? Painting class, kickboxing, book club. You don't need to keep him. He's a bad BF. And dog owner Cindy Svensson. Hang with Mary. Have her introduce you to her friends and family. She clearly comes from good people. Ask her to help you find groups where you can meet people. Book clubs, gaming groups. Take an evening college. Different universities call it different things. Class or two. These are classes that the campus hosts. Someone decides they want to teach how to can and preserve food, or how to write poetry, or how to do ballroom dance, or general car maintenance, or computer use, and they offer a class. Usually it's only about $40 to $100 and is several weeks at an hour or so a week. I did ballroom dance and loved it. Speak with Mary and her group and ask them to help you find social connections. I wish you the best. This is just another reason to put in the I hate cults list. You've made it out, you're making it, you are growing and developing confidence, and you will get there. Maroon grad. Update 2. If you recall, my BF threw me out on Christmas because his baby mama would not let him see his kids unless he uninvited me to Christmas. He expected me to leave behind the expensive gifts I bought his kids, take him grocery shopping, he can't drive for medical reasons, and leave my dog with them to play with. I have a history of social isolation, abuse, and have one friend my own age, so I had no one to tell me how bad this was, and no other social outlets. Phil arranged a small Christmas gift opening for me, him and his kids. He finally told me he loved me and wants to marry me. He then offered to let me move in with him, but then hit me up to buy a sofa. A few days later, I was out of gas. He got out to pump the gas, but asked for my credit card. He would not even chip in for gas, even though I take him everywhere. A couple of weeks ago, I noticed that I am out of kitchen knives. Like, my utensil drawer was just emptier and emptier. I have a cleaning lady, and figured maybe she put them someplace weird, because she has spaced out. She's sweet but more ADHD than I am, which is a lot. They were in Phil's utensil drawer. He has been stealing utensils from me for some reason. This was it today. I blocked him. Stories number 4. I went through my boyfriend's phone after he got mugged. I, 26, went through my boyfriend's, 36, phone after he got mugged. My boyfriend and I have been together for 35 years. He works for an airline and frequently has trips that take him out of the country. I don't mind this because it was understood when we started dating that he would have to travel internationally, which usually meant he was gone for 3/4 days. Well, one of his trips took him to Belgium, not somewhere I would automatically think of as dangerous, but one night during his trip he went out with his fellow flight attendants and got drunk. At some point during the night he got separated from his friends and had his wallet and phone stolen. When he got back to the hotel, he called me from his Apple Watch crying, telling me what just happened. I went into defense mode, asked if he was okay and offered to go into his iPad, which was at home, to mark the phone as lost/stolen so no one else could use it. He gave me the password and I disabled the phone from the iPad. Afterwards, we hung up. It was late and he had a flight the next day, and my curiously got the best of me. I went the messages app to see if he had been talking to anyone else, which I had expected. I found out, from messages, he has been cheating on me for over 2 years, having even brought people into our apartment while I was at work. I don't know how to feel. Part of me knew inside something was up, another part of me feels angry for having ignored my feelings all this time. This is the first long-term relationship I'd ever had, the first time I've ever lived with someone I feel betrayed. He has been with several people over the last couple of years, meanwhile we have not been intimate with each other in almost the same amount of time. He told me, I'm dealing with health problems, or, I just feel self-conscious about myself. Meanwhile he has been hooking up with other people the entire time. Aita for going through his messages. It's not something I'd normally do, but I did and my hunches were correct. Stories number. My uncle is acting strangely with my sister. To be blunt, I noticed that my uncle, 49M, has been paying a lot attention to my sister, 14F. It's not just that he gives her more gifts or just prefers her, but whenever we show up to his house for a family event or just something similar, he always talks about how she looks and is always doing stuff like patting her lower back, rubbing her shoulders, or he'll grab her waist without warning. His gifts for her are also more expensive. It was fine at first, he was at my sister's birth and was one of the first to hold her, so she's always been his favorite to an extent and he's always spoiled her. But it's like I blinked and he's suddenly acting like this. I don't know exactly when he started acting differently with her, but I noticed it a week ago and we haven't been to his house since then. I've tried talking to my grandma about it, but she just brushes it off and my parents are always too busy. I'm also scared of telling our other extended family because of the fact my grandma brushed me off the first time. What should I do? Cause I don't want to just ignore it, but I'm also scared of telling anyone else in case I'm overreacting. Edit. This isn't really an update, but for the comments who asked, I haven't talked to my sister about it yet, but I'm planning to do so later. We're at our grandma's house right now, and considering our grandma brushed off what I said, I don't want to cause too much of a fuss if she ends up hearing me bring it up again. I'm also planning to talk to our parents as soon as we get home. All your comments drilling it into my head that I had to tell them helped. Thank you for helping me not be a coward and for your guys' support in general. Update. My uncle is acting strangely with my sister. Hi, I'm not sure if I'm doing this correctly, but I've seen people do updates this way before, so I'll just do it this way. First things first, thank you everyone for your comments and giving me advice. Second, I talked to my sister as soon as we got home from our grandma's and turns out, she's aware that it's weird but actually liked it at first. She said that our uncle is nicer to her than our parents and that the gifts are nice. She said that she only started feeling uncomfortable when he began to touch her, specific actions mentioned in my previous post, but that, because she's been accepting all his gifts for her, she thought it might be rude to start saying no. Now I asked her when it started and she revealed he started touching her in that way when she turned 12. She said that he only did it when they were in her room. Since we visit so often, our uncle and aunt have set guest rooms for me and my siblings, and that was the reason why she has no locks on her door specifically. She also said that she was scared of telling anyone that she was weirded out by his behavior because both our grandma and aunt brushed it off when she was 12, saying that she's always been his favorite and that she was probably just misreading everything he was doing because she's a teenager now. I showed her your comments. She's never heard of the word grooming before, so she was pretty shocked and a little angry, saying that our uncle would never do something like that, but I managed to convince her to tell our parents about our uncle together, even if it was just to ask them to stop him from touching her. I've also sent texts to our parents about it, detailing that my sister is uncomfortable with how our uncle behaves with her, but our parents have yet to respond to any of the texts I've sent about our uncle and have just texted that we'll talk about it when we get home. They're both working late today and won't be home by nighttime probably. Stories number 6. Aita for leaving a family dinner early because my MIL told people I was her *ped. I've never used Reddit before. My situation happened a couple days ago and I saw a TikTok on people reading from it and saw the comments and how they give advice, so I thought I'd try it out. Bear with me with knowing all the terminology. I'm 26 and my hubby is 27. We've been together since we were 16-17. Early on I loved his mother. She was the sweetest woman ever. She welcomed me in with open arms and always made good company. Of course, like everyone, she had her moments, like getting a little too mad at cashier not understanding her needs, or making a joke that made people a little uncomfortable, but everyone always brushed it off because she's just an amazing person. At the age of 23 to 24 me and my husband got engaged, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's like his mother's persona just flipped, like there was a switch on the back of her head. When we told her we were engaged she got pale and looked like we had told her someone had died. Hubby got weirded out like this and called her out on it. She just said she had to go and we didn't hear from her for about 3 weeks. We had lunch together often as family means a lot to me and my husband, so when we got stood up for our lunch date we worried maybe my husband came off a little harsh, so we went to check on her. Hubby's dad let us in, but had to talk to us first. He had began to tell us that she was shaken up by the proposal, saying it wasn't how things were meant to be. Hearing this, my husband got mad at his mother, implying that she had always thought of their relationship as temporary. He went to their room with me and his father following behind. We had found her coddled up with baby pictures of him crying. This was really disturbing for me and I excused myself. I was extremely confused and hurt that my soon-to-be mother-in-law thought of our relationship like that. My father-in-law consoled me and said, for whatever it's worth, I believe there is a little string bonding you and my son together. Don't listen to her. This stuck with me and made me cry. I still remember it to this day. My MIL proceeded to text me that I had taken away her baby boy, that no one could replace the love they share. Yes, I know a mother's love isn't replaceable, but, in my opinion, a mother and wife should not be in the same category to compete with each other. The love they show is completely different. And the love that's given to them is completely different too. She goes on to tell me that it was just meant to be him and her against the world. She has 3 other children. I didn't respond because it just weirds me out to think if she always felt this way. Back when I was a little girl, a parent of a child I was friends with raped and tortured me. I used torture lightly. He burnt my legs and privates and dug into my skin with the heated up head of the lighter. My hubby knew this very early on, and often had to take a few hits because I had panic attacks. Especially when we became intimate, he went out of his way to make sure I was loved and appreciated. He kissed all the parts of my body, including my scars. He was extremely protective, in a way where he only worried when something happened for him to be. He took hits from men for me and shouted at whoever he needed to. To say I am in love with this man is an understatement. My MIL knew what happened to me and cried when we told her. Fast forward a bit, some space and talks later, his mother tolerated me. The sting that comes with this relationship change isn't describable. We were attending a family dinner, where we planned on announcing a pregnancy. We had cooked words into the food saying who each person was going to be, e.g., "You're my auntie." Most caught on, my little niece caught on first and then my MIL. She became silent, which we thought was for the better. Honestly, after we ate and were just talking, she chimed in asking, "Is it really my son's baby?" Before I could say excuse, my husband yelled it instead. My MIL says that due to me letting another man touch me, how is she sure I wasn't weak enough to let it happen again? While my husband was arguing with her, I just got up and left. My husband ran after me cussing his mother out. My FIL left. 2 people soon started saying they had to go as well, as it was getting late. It was 6:30. I later got a message from my mother-in-law getting mad at me for leaving and embarrassing her. I don't think I was wrong for what I did, but I am starting to think maybe I should have just stayed and left. More appropriately, Aita Reddit, because I can't keep up with all the lovely comments. Me and our baby are no contact and she won't see her grandchild, but my husband is keeping her number muted, because we think having some way of communicating so better. I would never leave my husband if he does try to communicate. He's been with me through a world of hurt. This is a world of hurt for him. I'd never leave him. Just know that if you get an upvote on a comment, it was probably me. XX. I can't thank you all enough. I don't really know where to post an update if there is one, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. Maybe. Edit. I'm sure I'll have an update at some time. If someone could comment how is make an update, that would be lovely, because I have no idea how to use this app. Update is posted. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. If your husband doesn't cut his mother off completely and permanently, you need to cut him off completely and permanently. Reply. I wouldn't go that far. He has been with me through thick and thin. I wouldn't leave him if he chose not to cut her off. We have talked about how contact would be low, but I would never want them to not have a relationship. I'd like to give her a chance because, as I stated, family is so important to us, but he has said he would do whatever he needs to do to make me feel safe. Commenter 2. Your NTA. She is. I'm sorry she has treated you so disrespectfully. I'm glad your husband and FIL have supported you. A mother's love is one thing, but she should not be comparing it to the love between a man and a woman. She should not be trying to shame you, ESP, in public. For SA, I would steer clear of her. Reply. I have avoided her as much as possible. I haven't blocked her number as I didn't want to give her some sort of leverage for treating me like this. I've just muted and messages, so I don't even know if she does. Commenter 3. I'm sorry, and honestly she shouldn't be near your child and you need to limit your interactions with her. Talk to your husband about it. Reply. We have. It was the first thing I said when we got in the car, that I'm not letting a ride nutcase around my baby, and he immediately agreed. Commenter 4. Sounds like she needs a serious mental health intervention. Why hasn't your husband's family done anything about that yet? NTA. Obviously. Reply. It's still fairly new and I think it's more just people are shocked. I have gotten messages apologizing for her behavior though. You should go low contact with her FIL because he had been failing her husband and not getting his wife help. Reply. To defend my FIL because he's amazing. She was getting better, and paying for those kind of things gets really expensive, and he saw change in her behavior, hence why we were comfortable going to a dinner with them. He did mention about getting her fixed, so I hope she has help soon. I explained how her MIL's relationships are with her other children, husband, siblings. Reply. She's more calm with them. They definitely know my husband is the favorite and I know it must have hurt them a lot. My husband did apologies early in our teen years for never seeing it. Her other children don't like her that much, so yeah, it's more neutral and calm. Update. Hi, first I want to thank everyone so much for all the amazing and sweet comments. Quick edit. This update was written over the course of a couple days, so for example I said my husband kept her number but then I said she was blocked. I'm so sorry for any confusion that this causes. If you've kept up with my edits or replies on my original post, you'll know that I was low contact with my MIL. I've now gone full no contact. My hubby keeps her number muted, just in case something happens. My baby will never meet her grandma unless a professional tells me that she won't act like that anymore. I know some of you think I should divorce my husband if he doesn't go full NC. Respectfully, that's some advice I won't listen to. He has been through so much with me, and to leave Because he has to make a hard decision isn't what I agree with. We both think that keeping some way of communicating is what's best. Doesn't mean we are going to talk to her at all. Please don't comment, that's stupid, or you're going to get a world of hurt. It's purely for emergency purposes. His parents are getting old. We've had to come to terms with needing to keep her number in case something happens. To clear this up too, my FIL never took her somewhere at the beginning because she had gotten better. Hence why we went to a dinner with her in the first place. Now he is looking into people to help MIL, and I completely understand why he wouldn't just drop and divorce her. This is real life, and he made a promise to her to never leave when things got rocky. He may be blind and overly hopeful, but he is a man of his word. Also, all the comments saying what you would have done to my MIL made me and my husband laugh a lot, so thank you so much. Please know I saw all the comments and I loved them all. Now for the real update. So I had fully blocked my MIL number and she didn't appreciate this at all. It started off with messages to my husband about it, then letters, home visits, and then a rock through our window. We have no evidence that it was her, but we have our suspicions. My FIL hired a professional to talk to my MIL and she didn't agree at first, then was willing when the therapist said she wouldn't see her son or his baby ever. When she said this, my FIL proceeded to yell that she has no place in suggesting his wife might see her son and child again without consulting us. He especially got mad that I wasn't included in this threat of no contact. He fired her on the spot. We were on call with my FIL to heat how things went. We found someone else that understands our position and wants to help give answers to my MIL's family. Her first session went okay. She isn't keen on the therapist idea, but I think she just remembers what was said to her a couple days ago. She's been calling my husband and leaving voicemails crying, saying I'm a witch for taking him away from her, and that this isn't how it was supposed to go. We send every voicemail to her therapist and she's given us some possible reasonings like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, or schizophrenia. We've continued to get letters in the mail. They differ from crying like paragraphs, to the way she plans on getting her son back. A lot were very violent to me and my baby. My hubby isn't standing for this anymore, so we're going to be moving soon and my husband has fully blocked her. This has been really hard on my husband because he's having to grieve someone who's gone, yet still alive. I'll update more if anything happens and how the move goes. Relevant comments. OOP and her husband should consider about security cameras for the house and document everything. Reply. I'll bring this up with my husband as soon as he gets home. Thank you. X. Is your husband the youngest of his siblings? Reply. One other boy and two other girls. He is the youngest. Commenter 1. She still may need a medical exam with neurological focus workup. I say this not as her provider but as a medical professional, so this is just a general suggestion anyone can make. Reply. Fair. I think we were thinking more on a mental point, but we will definitely take her to a doctor. Thank you. Commenter 2. Why didn't a lot of you get her assessed years ago? When your first post time jumped, I was floored. It's like you opened the door to find the room on fire and decided to contain it with misting spray bottles and some rubber mats, for years, then got surprised each and every time it flared up into the hall. The woman has been on fire this entire time. You don't keep calm and carry on with rapid and destructive behavioral changes. Reply. That's just incorrect. I've stated multiple times, when we found her crying with my husband's baby photos, we were planning on her getting help, but she got better on her own, hence why we were comfortable going to a dinner with her. We thought, and she did too, that this random outburst was just her realizing that her son was grown. We didn't get help because she got better. Now it's happening again and we are, because it clearly wasn't what we thought. Commenter 3. Wait, did her first therapist say it was you guys at fault? I'm glad she is getting the help and she has her husband to support her through it. It also makes it a buffer so she hopefully won't go to a more violent behavior pattern, but if you guys are in contact with him, just make sure she isn't. I see a lot of great advice in the comments. I just want to say how strong you and your husband are, and I wish you all the goodwill and love in your lives going forward. Even through its shit and hard, it should be worth it in the end. Edit. I haven't seen this said, but in Australia and you are married, you are entitled to use either last name. Maybe request that your chosen name be used isn't of your legal in some or all aspects, so you are kept safe. I kept my last name when married as I didn't wish to go through all the hoops to change everything, but I can still set up things with my husband's last name if I so wish, and go to a courthouse to change it if I was in true danger. Reply. Her previous therapist basically gave her a promised ultimatum saying that if she goes to therapy, she will see her son and grandchild. Not only is this super unprofessional, it's also 10x worse when she doesn't consult us about this. What she had said, we would never go through with, so we just have an even angrier person. And no, sadly, we live in Canada. I was born in Australia and I miss it so much. Not hating on Canada, just love Australia too much. Commenter 4. I must be mistaken. I thought you said your father-in-law was there, and then reported what happened to you and your husband over the phone. You actually heard her say she wouldn't be able to see her son or grandchild? If so, that's very much out of line for a counselor to say. Perhaps I just interpreted what you said as her trying to persuade her to get help, as a, if you don't do this, this could be the consequences. I can't believe, I mean I do believe, I'm not calling you a liar, a therapist would say something that out of line right from the get-go. Reply, yep, me and my husband listen over the phone during her house visits, so yes, we did hear her. Now if I'll say she's out of line, it could come across as persuasion, but just like how a doctor can't promise that you'll be okay, any type of mental health care worker can't promise/give an ultimatum for something like that. It makes my MIL believe that just attending therapy means she will get back her baby boy, and when we clearly won't do that, we will just have an angry MIL again, and we're trying to get her to not want to hurt me. So, me not being included in this ultimatum was also very unprofessional in the sense that we're trying to get her help because she seems to hate my guts, but her CS worker is actively only including the people she doesn't have a problem with. I have no idea if that makes sense. Stories number 7. Aita for still being no contact with my brother after something that happened 4 years ago. Me, 20, and my brother, James, 25, were really close before this, but I don't feel safe around him and haven't felt safe around him after what happened. So rewind to 4 years ago. I was at James's house/apartment for the summer. At that time my brother was stressed out. He was an intern, working to become a doctor, worked a part-time job on the side, had bills to pay, and then on top of that had to take care of 16-year-old me. It was hard, I understand that, but that doesn't make what he did understandable. So around April of that year, his rent increased by a lot, so he got another part-time job. One day after a long night shift he came home. He was really tired and had to go to his second job. I could tell he was stressed out, so I made him some dinner. I left dishes in the sink cause I also was very tired. I went to sleep and woke up the next day to him yelling for me to wash all the dishes before he got home. He was leaving for work already, did everything he needed to in the kitchen. I'm guessing the dishes just bothered him. TW, bloody details coming up, drop of blood. I was like okay and was walking back into my room to go back to sleep like any normal person would, cause I could just do it later. Then he goes batshit crazy, yelling at me that I'm lazy and can't do anything and I'm always in my room 24/7. I was so confused, so I was like, bro, are you okay? And he saw that as a form of disrespect and slapped me. Context: my brother is a gym rat who plays football and boxes. Crazy ick. So I'm like, WTF, you just hit me, and screamed at him. He said STFU and I continued yelling at him and he slaps me again, but this time he busted my lip, so my teeth bit the top part really hard/deep, and same with my bottom lip, so blood is dripping everywhere. And my brother says, clean this mess up. I can't forget those words to this day. I proceeded to have a panic attack for about an hour and patched myself up. By that time, my lip was really swollen. It looked like I did the Kylie Jenner lip trend. LOL. I packed up all my things and left. I went back to my parents' house, cause again I was there for the summer. I get home, I don't tell my parents what happened, but later in the day my phone starts blowing up. My brother is texting, calling, leaving voicemails, trying to reach me in any way possible. I blocked him on everything, and after he couldn't reach me, he talked to my parents and told them what happened. They, of course, were mad at him but eventually got over it. After a month or so I let him know that I was not going to contact him again and that he should really leave me alone and he should stop trying, because I would never trust him or feel safe around him ever again. I haven't contacted him since, but here comes the problem. This year I finally got an internship at a hospital that I've always wanted to work at since I was a little kid. I was so excited. I held a party for myself, put it all over social media, and invited all of my family, except my brother, of course. He found out. I'm not sure who told him yet, but I will figure it out. He got a hold of my social media. I'm not sure who gave it to him, but he contacted me using a fake account and asked why he wasn't invited. I told him I hadn't talked to him for the past 4 years and why he would expect me to ever say anything to him again. He said because he is family, he was hoping that I had forgiven him after what happened, and that I am being too immature and just need to let him celebrate me. He said that being an intern was a big part of his life too and could give me advice. I told him that I didn't want anything from him and that he should leave me alone. I blocked him, but I've been getting calls from other family members saying that I shouldn't hold a grudge against family and need to forgive him for a mistake he made. It's got my whole family divided and I'm not sure what to do. Sorry if this is really hard to read, I'm still in shock a little bit. Stories number 8. Aita for discontinuing my nephew's scholarship after seeing his social media post being proud to Elon's Nazi gesture. I need your honest opinion about my dilemma. I have been financially supporting one of my nephews through college, my late husband, and I set aside a fund for any of our nieces or nephews who needed help with education. He was the first to take us up on the offer, and I've been covering most of his tuition and living expenses since he started school. Last year he and I have always been close, so this decision wasn't hard for me. He lost his dad, my brother-in-law, when he was 12, and I've tried to be there for him like a second parent. Yesterday, I stumbled across one of his public social media posts that left me speechless. It was a clip of Elon Musk doing what looked like a Nazi salute at Trump's inauguration. The caption read, "Free thinkers like Elon are what this world needs." Don't let the sheep tell you otherwise. Power leadership truth. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm Jewish and my late husband was too. Our entire family has been vocal about combating anti-Semitism and educating the younger generation about its dangers. To see my nephew, someone I've supported and loved dearly, share something that glorifies a fascist symbol was devastating. I immediately called him to talk about it. He dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting and that the post wasn't literal. He said Elon Musk's actions were blown out of proportion and that people need to stop being so sensitive about everything. When I asked him if he understood why the post was harmful, he shrugged it off, saying, "It's just a different perspective." This attitude crushed me. I told him that I couldn't, in good conscience, continue funding his education if he didn't understand the gravity of what he was supporting. He called me unfair and accused me of cancel culture. He later texted me, saying he thought family was supposed to support each other no matter what. My sister, his mom, has been calling me non-stop, begging me to reconsider. She thinks I'm being too harsh and that pulling his scholarship could ruin his future. She suggested I educate him instead of punishing him. I told him to read the history books, but he refuses because according to him, they're not factual. But here's the thing, I've tried. This isn't the first time he has shared problematic views online, though nothing this extreme. I've had conversations with him before, but it doesn't seem to make a difference. So, Aita for standing up my principles. Stories number 9. My brother married my ex. Now their messy relationship is spilling into the family, and everyone's choosing sides. I, 27F, have a complicated family dynamic, to say the least. My ex-boyfriend Alex, 30M, and I dated for 3 years, and during that time, he became really close with my family. He was charming, helpful, and honestly, my parents liked him more than I did. Toward the end of the relationship we broke up amicably, or so I thought. But it still stung when, less than a year later, my brother Matt, 32M, announced that he and Alex were dating. At first, I tried to be supportive. Love is love, and it wasn't like I wanted Alex back, but the dynamic became unbearable when they got married and Alex essentially inserted himself into every family situation. He has this knack for twisting conversations into awkward reminders of our past relationship. At family dinners, he'll make comments like, "Oh, remember when we used to eat at this place all the time," while my brother sits there awkwardly. Fast forward to now, their relationship is a total train wreck. They fight constantly and drag my parents into it. My mom confided in me that Alex has been pressuring Matt to buy a house he doesn't want, and now Matt's credit is tanked on top of that. Alex's behavior at family gatherings has been unbearable. He got drunk at my niece's birthday party last week and made a toast where he joked about how he dated me first and married up. I tried to stay neutral for years, but this is getting out of hand. My brother is visibly miserable, but every time I bring it up, he accuses me of trying to sabotage his marriage out of jealousy. Meanwhile, my parents are exhausted by the drama but refuse to set boundaries because they're afraid of losing Matt and their future grandchildren. I'm torn between letting this dumpster fire burn itself out and stepping in to tell my brother he deserves better. Has anyone else dealt with a situation where a family member married your ex? How do I handle this without completely tearing the family apart? Stories number 10. Aita for declining to invite a woman who has called herself a total klepto into my home. I joined a women's social club 6 months ago because I've been struggling to make friends after relocating to a new-to-me city. It took me a while to warm up to the group and to connect with people I actually had anything in common with. I had to wade through a lot of Botox parties and boozy brunches to find things I was interested in, but I did. And I started coming to group events fairly often. I hang out most often with the women who like to read, do crafty things, bake, sky watch, etc. Among these women is one, I'll call her Andia, who has made several comments about how she's a total klepto. I think that she makes these comments to seem cool to the other people in the group. I reached out to some of the women I see regularly at these events and invited them over to my place to watch a TV show we've been talking about and do crafty stuff. They were excited and agreed to come. Unfortunately, Andrea found out, I assume someone asked if she was going, and reached out to me to ask if she was invited. I considered this for a bit and then told her no, as I only had so much room at home. She didn't believe me and asked me for the real reason, saying, I thought we got along, which yes, is true. I told her I'm not comfortable inviting a kleptomaniac into my home, that I've worked hard to have the things I have and it would be stupid for me to invite her knowing that she openly brags about it. She said, okay, very quietly. She then said, you're painting me out to be some horrible criminal when you don't even know anything about me. I said that her being proud to call herself a klepto was all I needed to know. She said that I was a high school mean girl and ableist. I am unsure what the foundation for that statement is. This unfortunately has spilled over to the group, which is frustrating, but what has me the most surprised is that there are so many people defending her and telling me that I'm out of touch and take things too literally. Am I? Stories number 11. Aita for requiring destination wedding guests to only book through our block, and not their timeshare. We're having an all-inclusive destination wedding in 2023. Like most places, we're required to book a room block in advance to qualify for discounts for guests, guaranteed rooms, and various other wedding package perks. We must book X amount of people through the room block we paid for in our contract. It turns out 2 of our guests have a timeshare through the resort, effectively slashing their reservation price by about 30% from the online price. Our package cuts it down maybe 10% at most. Weddings must be in demand. I wonder why, without asking, they went ahead and booked their timeshare, only to tell us later. Then they shared their timeshare membership to 4 other guests, 6 total now, who are all booking reservations through the wholesale timeshare company. It's one of those multi-resort packages that cost a lump sum, and then once or twice per year the member gets heavily discounted vacations. We were okay planning around 2 guests, but now 6 guests are circumventing our wedding package that we paid for altogether. We are now somewhat worried about meeting our minimum guests booked through package threshold in the contract to have the wedding, ceremony, and rehearsal without the minimum guest threshold. We lose the rehearsal and ceremony. I'm sure we can ask for an exception and pay any extra fees out of pocket if it comes to it. We'll also probably fail to meet other tiers that would give our package the extra oomph. We wanted to subsidize rooms and pass around upgrades to guests, bringing down the cost of the wedding as a whole for everyone coming. We can't guarantee any subsidization until we reach a tier that helps us towards that goal, so I don't want to dangle that carrot in front of their heads. We could tell them to book 3 nights, the required minimum through our package, through us, and then any other nights through their timeshare, but I'm tempted, for simplicity's sake, to tell them no altogether. They need to book through the wedding package to be a part of the wedding. Am I the asshole? Edit. We don't save more money if more people book. We can just pass out more free rooms and upgrades, and other guest discounts, spa package discounts, free golf, etc. That's what I meant by bringing down costs of the wedding as a whole. Our package is a flat dollar rate regardless of who books. So long as a minimum of guests book through the block. If the minimum isn't met, we lose our private reception and dinner, but it doesn't cost us more. Edit. Not verbatim, but I've gone ahead and told them congrats on the discount. We're happy they are all able to attend. Make sure to keep in touch with the travel agent who is more familiar with the resort to make sure all goes smoothly. I do know transportation to and from the airport won't be provided outside the package, so make sure to ask your timeshare reps how they recommend tackling that. We hadn't planned ahead last time and ended up paying $60 each way, and that I'll ask if the resort needs to give you a specific colored wristband or anything to indicate that you are a part of the wedding so that you have no issues. Consensus. Asshole people point out it should be the choice of guests how to spend their money. Update. A few years have gone by and today I remembered how much negative attention it had gotten. I'm writing an update coming up on our 2-year anniversary about our experience, and to maybe deter anyone from declining a destination wedding or resort contract based on my original post or the comments in the original thread, if that's what you want to do. I didn't cover reasoning for doing a destination wedding in the OPR. Guests were spread all over and some in other countries. It did not make sense to have them come to where we live, since it's mostly nothing, frigid, and expensive to travel here. Why not spend that time and money somewhere memorable? Saying no to attending a destination wedding is easy, no harm no foul. Another reason we chose a destination wedding was to spend more time with relatives who we don't see often, instead of the couple of hours. Everything went better than expected. 100 people came, so my worries about a contracted guest minimum was misplaced. I was afraid of renegotiating a contract after guests booked. Since the contract had nullification clauses, I realized after the OP that the resort wants you to be a pseudo-salesman. Some comments didn't consider how these resorts operate, but many were correct about the sleazy contract I got myself into. We didn't ask our timeshare guests to change anything, and we've remained close friends. The contract was our only wedding planning stress point. It's understandable if you don't want to deal with it, but if you're reading this and going through that phase now, just relax. Careful what you sign. But also the resort isn't going to play hardball with someone bringing them business. We were able to meet all thresholds, not that we cared, and spent them on upgrading all family and wedding party to beachfront swim-out rooms, and gave 8% off the final room costs for all guests. The trip created lasting memories and we're grateful for everyone who came. The event itself got rained out, but the staff was incredible and moved us to an indoor venue. The day prior we had toured with the coordinator and planned the setup outdoor. For all of that to be thrown out the window an hour beforehand, even though we hadn't even seen the indoor venue or setup, it really didn't matter. The staff went above and beyond and we couldn't thank them enough. We're blessed our guests traveled from all over the world to celebrate with us. I wanted to write this update because maybe someone searches Reddit and stumbles upon both threads. I couldn't find much information online about this topic. Yes, the contract is a negative to consider, but if you're in a position like us where people would be traveling quite some distance anyway, and you want everyone to have a memorable tropical experience, don't look back. Reddit might have your ass in the comments section, but zealous words on a website won't change real-life events involving people who have no affiliation with them. Comments. Yewa, I certainly earned my well-deserved share of flack for that post. I think getting a consensus on a general idea by posting it on the internet and the actual actions and solutions that occurred got a little misconstrued, but it's my fault for ever considering something along those lines. In the end, the only solution I decided I could deploy, if something truly had to happen, was to ask them to save their timeshare, let me know how much they saved, and that we would cover the difference to get them under our block. I was only going to consider that if the resort gave us no other option, and after plenty of arguing with the resort, but that didn't happen. We had a few more of the more adventurous guests stay off resort in the end anyway. The scary words in the contract never mattered. We strictly said no gifts, and where did I say the wedding was free? We paid for our room and the wedding in full, and how do you know the rooms were overpriced? Would you say our discounted room block rate $150 night at an all-inclusive is overpriced? We fought pretty hard with the wholesaler to get our rates low, and went through several resorts before our final decision. When the travel agent explained the package to us initially, I conflated the minimums between the room block contract and the wedding contract. The wedding contract for private rehearsal, reception, and ceremony would be lost if there were not enough wedding guests, not block guests. I had that incorrect in the OP and clarified at a later date. Events would have instead been sectioned off in a restaurant or other public use area. Our guess was to utilize restaurant/bar staff instead of overstaffing a wedding. Even if it was a block guest's minimums, we would have been fine. My initial reaction was rash. Stories number 12. My 30F student, 18M, made a super creepy comment. My husband, 35M, think I'm being paranoid. I'm a high school English teacher and have been for a few years. In that time, as a woman, I've been used to teenage boys behaving awkwardly around me sometimes, and pheromones are part of the deal. There have been occasional comments, but generally in the vein of, Miss, so-and-so has a crush on you, or, Miss, would you be so-and-so's Valentine? It's all in good humor, in front of the whole class or a large group, and is well-meaning. My school throws a January ball for seniors, 16 to 18, which is basically an opportunity to celebrate the start of another calendar year, as it's after hours. Not every teacher has to attend, and this year I was asked to chaperone. There is no alcohol permitted, but obviously some of them sneak in hip flasks and so on. During this month's ball, 2 students were huddled at a table in the corner of the hall, not dancing, just keeping to themselves. I know them well as problematic students who have difficulties socially, but also perform poorly academically, so they don't fit in with the popular crowd or the nerdy lot. We have some of these every year. Poor hygiene, greasy hair, long fingernails, that sort of thing. Immediately I could tell they had been drinking, from the way they spoke and smelled, and asked them to hand over any alcohol they had. One of the boys, call him Stuart, started protesting. He said the following, and I'm 100% sure this is what he actually said. Come on, miss, don't pretend you won't open that bottle of Bailey's when you get home, feet up in your dressing gown, watching the new TV. Give us a break. Now as soon as he said this, I felt my heart drop into my stomach and got cold all over. I had just bought a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream for myself the weekend before the dance. I am in the habit, on nights where I don't have much marking/planning and want to treat myself, of having a bath and watching a movie/series in my dressing gown. My husband bought a new television over Christmas. I asked him how he knew those things, and he feigned ignorance, basically saying it was a lucky guess. I was so shaken that I left them, and a short while later they both left. But that night I could barely sleep, and my paranoia kept growing. I simply cannot believe that he could have guessed all 3 those things. 1, maybe, but no way all 3. My husband is away for work currently. I phoned and told him about it, and he basically downplayed my concerns, saying I probably mentioned those things to my class at various points and this student has just remembered it, but I would never mention those things. I just wouldn't, and I'm sure I haven't. I've become more skittish at home when I hear noises. I only live in a small house, but when I arrive home from buying groceries I check every single room and cupboard before I lock the doors. I've also arranged to have the locks changed when cars stop outside the house. I turn all the lights off and peek at them through the blinds. I'm having trouble sleeping. In class, this student is quiet and the same as ever, not completing homework assignments, distracted in class. My husband is growing increasingly exasperated and worried more for my mental health than the possibility this student could somehow know details of my personal life. I mentioned it to my supervisor as well, and she also basically reasoned that I had either misheard what he said, it was a coincidence, or a combination of the two. What's the play here? I'm seriously freaked out and don't know how to even begin putting this to rest. Stories number 13. Mother asked to stay in our wedding suite. LGBT couple, my 35F, bride and I, 41F, planned an elopement in Vegas initially, but of course everyone wanted to come, so we paid to have a micro wedding, under 10 people, for our most special guests to come. Everyone is responsible for their own rooms, arrangements, flights, etc. We posted on our website, which no one has read. We planned a week out in Vegas, the first few days being just for me and my future wife. However, my dear mother doesn't want to fly out to Vegas just for a wedding. She's never been to Vegas, so she wants to make a whole trip of it. To me, this is not a family trip, although my family will be there. It is a trip for me and my wife. It is our wedding, after all. A few months ago, my mother suggested to stay with us in our hotel suite for the first few nights. The three of us. I shot that idea down pretty hard and explained there won't be enough room. It's a wedding suite, so one king bed, one thin couch. I was definitely surprised she had the wherewithal to even. Weather has been bad for my family and my bride's family in their respective cities. Last night my mother called to tell me she may not make it a few days before the wedding. She's thinking of canceling her hotel room for those 3 days because she doesn't want to lose her money for me. That's not a huge loss. We wanted the time beforehand together anyway. I continue listening and waiting for her to ask if she can stay in our room. Mom, so if I cancel my hotel room but end up going out that day anyway, can I stay with you in your room? Me, Mom, there's only one bed and the couch is way too thin. Mom, I'll sleep on the floor. Me, Mom, no, it's not appropriate to be in my wedding suite during the wedding week. Mom, I don't understand, you guys live together, what's the difference? Me, it's not appropriate. Mom, you have made it very clear that you don't want me there those days before the wedding. That part is kinda true. We wanted to be alone, but she wanted to come sooner. Me, Mom, you know I've already bought tickets to events that include you, and we have brunch plans on this day as well. I'd rather you be safe, and if you have to fly out a couple of days later, then it's fine. Mom, I'm worried I'm going to miss your wedding and then you'll be mad I missed your wedding. Because she told me 20 years ago that she wouldn't attend my wedding if I married a woman. She's come a long way since then, and she loves my partner. I never thought my own mother would be so enmeshed with me that she would suggest to stay in my room with me. Why? I don't even understand why you would want to stay with your daughter and her new wife in her wedding suite. I can't believe I had to tell the woman who raised me, the woman who taught me manners and respect. I can't believe I had to explain to her why she can't stay in the room with me and my partner. I feel so guilty, probably because I've been told to feel guilty as a child, and I know I'm making the right decision. Never expected my own mother to be a monster-in-law. Update: Mother asked to stay in our wedding suite. Well, I'm sure you all are wondering how the wedding went and where Mom slept. I feel my story has taken a sad turn. My relationship with my mother is worse than I thought. I'll get to the story now. We both arrived at the airport around the same time from our different flights, and my mom had a pain that affected her walking. Not great. Since we're going to be walking around in Vegas, I offer Advil multiple times and she rejects it. I believe she may have taken it one time from me. We arrive at her hotel first. I assume she never canceled her reservation, lol, because she had a reservation. We dropped our bags at her room and got on with our plans. Later that night, my wife and I checked into our suite, alone. The first fight with my mom was the next day in my suite. She had interrupted me several times that day, one of our many problems, then pointed out how I interrupted her. At one point I tried to once again begin my story. She interrupts me and I exasperate. Do you know how many times I've tried to tell this story today and you've interrupted me? Then I said, do you do this to everyone, or just me? And she put her middle finger in my face, screaming at me, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. My wife had to intervene and say, whoa. That was not necessary. My wife later told me she almost threw her out of our room. I stuck to my I statements and I said, when you cut me off, it makes me feel like what I'm saying isn't important. I should have addressed the FUs, but it was too heated at the time. I tried to de-escalate and will address this at a later time. At this point I'm realizing my mother is immature, emotionally immature. Whatever feelings she's feeling when I confront her, genuinely BTW, asking her if she truly does this to everyone or just me, she can't handle it and freaks out on me like a high schooler. It's sad. I'm devastated. Actually, to have this insight on my wedding getaway caused me a lot of pain. I've looked for answers for a long time. I've thought maybe she's narcissistic. My therapist mentioned possible BPD, but I'm looking into emotional immaturity at the moment. I've learned it can coincide with narcissism, or BPD, so I can't necessarily write those off. Then the night after that, the rest of the party starts to arrive. My wife's best friend arrives very late and has a reservation in our hotel. She calls my wife to let her know her room isn't ready, and they're looking for a room for her. My mother pipes in, she didn't call. She didn't call in advance to let them know. I realize very quickly this sounds like she's putting the responsibility on me, that the friend's problem is now suddenly my problem. Mom, I don't know if she called in advance. She's responsible for her own travel and her own hotel room. I say. She responds, well, are you going to let her stay in your hotel room if she doesn't get a room? I reply, no, she's not staying in my room. There are plenty of hotel rooms in Vegas. She will get a room tonight. She's a big girl. Mom, that's fucked up. She says, a good friend of mine also came on the trip with her new partner, stayed in a different hotel, Not a problem. She didn't arrive to my hotel suite until we were about to be picked up from the limo. She gets along with my mom really well the minute we were in the limo. The two of them were attached at the hip and I feel like I barely spoke to my friend. I have video and pictures specifically of them ignoring everyone else in the limo and speaking only to each other. I took them because I felt like the party was kind of separated in the limo. The wedding went off without a hitch. It was absolutely beautiful and I was so incredibly happy, crying tears of joy, I hope, and not tears of how much in pain I was from the emotional week I had already had. The next morning, my friend once again ignored me to have breakfast with her partner. We discussed in advance the time everyone was getting together, and she scheduled her reservation for 30 minutes before she sat at a different table and ate alone with her partner. We got a table next to her with 2 extra chairs. But she did not join us. She later asks my wife if I'm upset, and my wife responds, she thought she'd spend a little time with you on the trip. I try to let the feeling go. I'm just devastated by the people I'm allowing in my life at the moment. I am really considering evaluating these relationships. Later in my hotel room that night, I receive a text from my good friend saying that she's taking off a little early from the trip, blames it on work. I really don't know why she even came. Just for the vacation. I guess I barely said 2 words to her in the 5 hours I saw her. Sad, sad, sad. I am so sad about this, about all of this. Other than the drama, I really enjoyed the trip. I had a lovely time with my wife, and very happy with our hair and makeup, our vendors, our ceremony. It was all so beautiful and I am thankful they came to see us get married. I definitely had some insecurities before going on this trip. And it's a reality. I have issues with some people in my life. I am currently in therapy and had a discussion with my therapist about this. I'm certainly not going no contact or ghosting anyone after this, but discussions need to be had, and therapy needs to continue. Books need to be read, and practice needs to be put in place. All I can do is commit myself to a healthy life in all ways, practice radical acceptance. If anyone has any advice on how to let go of the pain, accepting it, or trying to be less emotional about it all, I'm open ears. Thanks for listening. Relationships are hard, especially with emotionally immature people. Stories number 14. My wife wants separation 4 months after marriage, but we're in the middle of buying a house together. Need advice. Hey Reddit, I'm really struggling and could use some outside perspective. My wife and I had what I thought was a perfect 4-year relationship before getting married 4 months ago. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but we always worked through them together. Then everything changed. 2 months after our wedding, I started noticing concerning changes. She became increasingly distant. Her texting dropped off significantly. She asked me to spend a weekend away so she could have space to miss me. When I returned, things seemed better at first, but then she dropped a bombshell. She needs an emotional separation. Could be a month, could be a year, she's not sure. She says she needs to work on herself and feels our relationship is overburnt to her, because we're always together. Here's where it gets complicated. We're in the middle of buying a house together, already put down a non-refundable $20,000 deposit. She can't get the mortgage loan without me. She's now living in a separate room in our place. She turns off car connection so I can't see when she goes out and doesn't tell me where she's going. She gets angry when I ask who she's spending time with. The really confusing part: she still shows moments of affection. 3 days ago, she silently came to my room, hugged me for 20 minutes, then left without a word. Yesterday, she made me dinner and disappeared again. She keeps insisting she loves me indefinitely and wants to spend her life with me, but needs this time apart. She started therapy for her emotions and claims this separation could improve our relationship, but when I gently asked if there might be someone else, she got angry and shut down the conversation. I'm torn about the house situation. She insists our temporary problems shouldn't affect buying the house, saying things might be better by then. When I ask what happens if we split up after buying, she says she'd just live with her mom for a while. I have nowhere else to go if things fall apart. Should I give her the space she's asking for? Should I walk away from the house purchase despite losing the deposit? Am I overreacting or missing red flags? Would really appreciate any advice from people who've been through something similar. Stories number 15. To fool by joking about the CEO's baldness and getting fired for it. So, this happened today, and I still can't believe it. Our CEO, who usually works from a different location, visited our office now. To give some context, he's completely bald, and I've been dealing with a receding hairline for a while now. It's something I've come to accept, and I often joke about it with my friends and coworkers. Anyway, when the CEO arrived, he was accompanied by my direct superior, the main coordinator of our department. I was introduced to the CEO, and in a moment of what I thought was light-hearted humor, I decided to make a little joke. I casually said, "I'll be the same as you soon." He looked at me a bit confused and asked, "The same as me how?" Without missing a beat, I replied, "Bald." There was this awkward silence that followed. My superior's face immediately changed, and the CEO just stared at me for a second, then gave an awkward chuckle before moving on. I thought maybe it wasn't a big deal. Fast forward a few hours, I get called into my boss's office. Long story short, I was informed that my comment was inappropriate and unprofessional, and it didn't align with the company's values of respect and workplace decorum. Before I knew it, I was being let go. Now, looking back, I can see how it might have been taken the wrong way, but at the time, it genuinely felt like an innocent, self-deprecating joke. I guess I underestimated how seriously some people take these things, especially when they're at the top. Lesson learned: maybe don't joke about the boss's appearance, no matter how relatable you think it is. Was it worth it? Yes. Funny AF. Would I do it again? Probably yes. TLDR, met the bald CEO, joked about my own receding hairline, got fired. Stories number 16. I'm jealous of white girls. It's so annoying not being escaped the labels of ghetto or whitewashed by literally everyone. It's jarring having to look kept up all the time to be treated with respect. It's annoying have to go on the internet and experience a first-hand reminder that you aren't desirable. I love my white Asian girlfriends to bits, but seeing them be able to outspoken without being labeled as masculine makes me so sad. Seeing them not get rejected for their race and in fact having boys chase after them is a reminder of how different I am. I wish I could pull up to school with a bun like white girls and be treated normally. If I came in with my 4C, heat damaged, people would make fun of it or treat me differently. I think my race is beautiful to heaven and back, but I can't stand literally being hated on for existing. Stories number 17. She cheated. Now she's making me wait for her to figure it out. Throwaway for obvious reasons. Basically the title: we've been married for almost 3 years, we were an LDR and we went through great financial and emotional turmoil to be together. I thought she loved me and she still says she does. I found out in November that she was cheating. We've both been suffering from poor mental health and I was trying to fix some of my symptoms, but I guess she found someone online and they made her happy. She said she loved them. We went through a lot early after I found out. She escalated their relationship to a sexual one. I said I wanted a divorce, but I don't. I want her to want to fix it and I don't know how to feel different. I have been into inpatient twice since this all started. We are currently separated and she told me she is distancing from this other man, but she doesn't want to commit to us again yet because she wants to mean it if she says it. Meanwhile I have to sit here and wait and hope and just trust that things can be okay. I don't know what I hope to gain from this post. I have an idea what advice may be sent, but I guess I am hoping for some support. I don't want to be a 30-year-old divorcee and I am scared to venture into this country alone as it still feels new, despite the time I've been here. Edit. Apologies for not replying to individual comments. I'm reading and processing a lot of this advice. I appreciate all of you who have provided input. Edit 2. Thanks everyone, this is a lot to think about. To clarify a few things: the initial affair was emotional only. Yes, I am an immigrant who moved here for her. Stories number 18. Aita for telling my mom if her 3-month BF moves in we move out. Hi everyone, I just feel torn and I hope this could help me on how to handle this going forward so I do not lose my mom. So my mom and dad had me at a very young age, my mom 17 and my dad 19. It was pretty tough especially back in the day, but we all made it work somehow. But when I was 12 my dad got a heart attack and died, and it just left me and my mom. Ever since my dad she has had 2 serious guys, but it never worked out because she always said, "No one can compare to your dad," until now. I am married and my mom lives up at the coast in a very small town, the kind where the only shop for groceries is a small convenience store. My husband and I got into some financial issues and my mom said we should move in with her so we can get back on our feet. I was skeptical at first because it is obviously not ideal, but my mom with her kind heart said, "I can see you feel bad about it. Don't. Life is hard enough and parents are there to lift their children up and catch them when they fall. You need to come back home and regroup and gather back strength so life is not that hard on you." Now my mom lives in a small coast property that she rents, the type of place that looks like a 1-bedroom cabin from the outside. Well, it's a 3-bedroom and 1 bathroom and walls are thin, the Wi-Fi is rocky because of the coast and all the wind, and my husband works remotely in IT, so it's definitely not ideal, but we are making it work. Well, we have been here 20 days now and it was going so good it felt like a dream, but yesterday my mom calls me. A guy she dated last year proposed to her and she hasn't given an answer yet, but she told him and his 16-year-old they are welcome to move in a couple of hours after. She came back home all excited, but the smile quickly faded when I started asking questions. Nothing unreasonable, just the logical ones that got our heads spinning, like, how could you ask him to move in after one phone call of catching up after 3 months of dating a year before? How are we all going to live here? She got defensive and I tried explaining that I'm just worried about her and that it all feels a bit impulsive. A few hours of everyone just keeping out of each other's faces, my mom came to me asking if I would take a ride with her to the convenience store on the road. She asked if I really am just worried about her. Of course. You are my mom and it would have been the same if the roles were reversed. Then she asked me, well, what do you want me to say? I responded saying, I want you to say you didn't just do something that impulsive without giving it some thought. Then she said, it's my house, you're not going to be dictating what is allowed and who is allowed in my house. I agree, but you invited your daughter and son-in-law to come and live with you in already cramped space to help us, and not even 20 days later you want to move a man in with his 16-year-old son, and after only 3 months of dating the previous year. And then you come to us informing us about it. I'm not saying you should have asked permission, but a discussion would have been kind. It was total silence from there on to the convenience store and back home. When I got home I told my husband what happened, and he said I better go ask forgiveness for speaking so out of line. You can't tell a grown woman what to do. She raised you by herself, and we can't expect her to put her life on hold for us. Even if a discussion would have been the right thing to do, I thought about it a while and decided he is right, it was out of line of me, and so I apologized, but it did not go as I thought it would. It's kind of you to apologize, but it wasn't necessary. You just expressed your worry, and I have to respect that because you are my daughter, but he is special and I am not going to rescind my offer, and I will not ask permission. If he wants to come he is coming, and that's that. I just stood there dumbfounded. How could she be so obtuse about it, not even understanding that she is putting us in an uncomfortable situation as well. I just said, that's fine, you can make your own decisions in life, but we all cannot live here, and so if they move in we will move out. It would be the best thing for all. Oh come on honey, you are being a bit rash now. You don't need to move out, we will make it work. You need to sort out your things. No mom, it's not rash, we can't all live here. If the house was bigger it would have been different, but 5 people in a 3-bedroom 1-bathroom cabin is a bit much and unrealistic. If you think I till work, my husband also needs to work, and where will he work then? Maybe you both need to just think about this some more and get back to me. And that was that. Ever since my mom is acting like nothing happened, going on as usual. Am I just being an ungrateful child or a jerk of a daughter? I just feel like this is all too strange and I worry about her, and this whole plan is just crazy. Am I a jerk? Edit. I have never met this man or his child. I never even knew his name until this all came up when she called me all excited. She said, Mike proposed, which left me stating the obvious, who is Mike? Update to Aita for telling my mom if her 3-month BF moves in we will move out. I just want to thank everyone for commenting. I couldn't believe how many people were so supportive and some eye-opening due to so many people commenting. I thought I would give my last update. By some miracle this guy decided not to move in. He gave my mom numerous reasons, all reasonable. At least in my opinion one of the reasons is that his son is settled already where they are living now, and it doesn't make sense to disrupt his son's life when he is comfortable in his school at his age and he has all his friends already, and apparently he does Krav Maga classes as well. Another reason was that because we live so far and they live in the city it would be expensive to move, which he cannot afford. Apparently he does have a job but it's not in his line of work, so he is looking, but the job market is bad according to him. The sad part is, apart from his crazy spontaneous proposal, he seems logical when it counts. Also many people asked in my previous post why he and my mom stopped dating in the first place. Apparently my mom chose another guy over him, but turns out the guy she chose is married, so she booted him fast. Honestly, I am so glad my mom will be safe because this whole thing started getting crazy fast. I hope my mom finds a good man and she so deserves it, but until then there are a few froggies I need to keep an eye on. Stories number 19. Apparently, gaining 10 kilograms after 9 years is a conversation starter at work now. Matched energy. 9 years ago, when I started working, I weighed 50 kilograms. I had an ED, and my mom had just passed away back then. I was constantly with clients, until COVID happened. Since then, my job has become more digital, and I don't see as many people in person. Now, I weigh 10 kilograms more. I'm 162 centimeters, fitter, and objectively prettier, and yet, for the second time this week, someone felt the need to comment on my weight. This time, after casually mentioning that his daughter is a gastroenterologist, this man looked at me and said, I notice you are more different. I notice you are more, and before you were more. Did you get married or something? Because before, you were much thinner. So I smiled and replied, yeah, before I was thinner because I had anorexia, bulimia, and my mom had just died. I had to drop out of school to work, so I had no appetite, or money, to eat. That's why I was thin. The silence was immaculate, the air heavy, the regret palpable. Safe to say, he won't be making another comment anytime soon, at least to me. Stories number 20. The uninvited guest who wouldn't take no for answer. I had a very small destination wedding about 10 hours from my hometown, but only 2 hours from a fairly major city, which is where most of the guests flew into. It is also where my dad's cousin and her husband live. This woman is one of the most insufferable, outspoken, overbearing people I've ever met in my life, and I wouldn't have wanted her at my wedding even if it had been a much larger wedding with a much larger guest list. She pestered my parents relentlessly about coming to the wedding, to which the reply was always, sorry, we are not allowed to have more than X number of people on the property including photographers, caterers, etc. and simply cannot facilitate any further wedding guests. We should have known then how desperate she was to come, but figured it would eventually sink in that she would not be attending no matter how she begged. Months later, my mom and I drove into the town where the wedding is would be 2 days prior to begin preparations as a compromise of sorts. We told this cousin that we would meet her and her husband for dinner and catch up if they wanted to make the drive over the evening we arrived. Big mistake, they very much did want to drive over and meet us for dinner. So we grabbed a bite with them and tried to part ways only to be told that they, totally spontaneously and not at all with an agenda, went ahead and booked a hotel and just decided to make a weekend getaway of it. Dad's cousin once again tried to force her way into getting a wedding invite for herself and her husband, and we reiterated that she could not attend. We prayed ways and I hoped that might be the end of it if only that had been the case. The next morning my family and the bridal party started arriving. My mom and I left our hotel to walk around town and then meet up with my brother and his family, who I had not seen in about a year and was beyond excited to reunite with moments before their arrival, who come strolling up. Yep, Dad's cousin, who immediately inserted herself into the reunion with my family and interjecting herself so loudly the entire time it just absolutely ruined an otherwise sweet and wonderful moment. We said our goodbyes to her, but instead, she decides to attach herself to us and followed us everywhere the entire rest of the morning and afternoon, forcing herself into every subsequent reunion and festivity. The worst moment that finally pushed me over the edge came during a late lunch. We'd been walking around all day and I was getting tired and hungry and crabby, so my bridesmaids and I found an adorable little taco place with a beautiful patio and decided to grab a bite to eat outside. She followed us in and sat right down with us. Then proceeded to comment on every single thing I did for the entire meal. The 2 comments that still stick out were, "You're sure going to be a beautiful lobster with the sunburn you're going to get eating outside like this," as we sat fully shaded under 2 huge umbrellas, and, "After I ordered 2 street tacos, I guess making sure you fit into your dress never occurred to you if you're going to be eating all of that." At this point my blood was boiling, and I was genuinely becoming convinced she was showing up at my wedding the next day one way or another no matter what we told her, so I stood up after paying and told her it was going to be bridal party only from that point forward and we booked it out, leaving her behind. It would be so great if that were the end, but she and her husband genuinely did show up at the venue that evening, gifts in hand. Moments before the rehearsal dinner started they were fully dressed and ready to be a part of the event. She went around to every single person there, telling them about how much it would mean to her to be there at the wedding, and said no less than 10 times, "I promise I don't even have to be in the room. I would be more than happy to stand outside looking in the windows if I could only just watch." Finally, God bless him, my very confrontational and authoritative brother stepped in and reminded her in no uncertain terms that she was not invited and would not be showing up. She finally left and thankfully we did not hear from her again that weekend. She did however show up at my house years later while visiting other family in town because she knew I'd had my son recently and she just had to meet him, then the very next day texted us to tell us she tested positive for COVID that morning. Have not seen her since, really don't want to see her again, though she has a knack for popping up no matter how hard you try to avoid her. Stories number 21. Aita for not splitting my mom's inheritance with my siblings. I, 28F, have 6 siblings. Our mom recently passed in November from stage 4 cancer. I had a really great relationship with my mom. We would spend time together and my 4 children, 5-year-old twins, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, all loved her. I am the youngest of all my siblings. My older siblings didn't prioritize much time with my mom until the last few months when she couldn't do much for herself anymore. I currently live with my boyfriend, 38M, and our 4 children in a 3-bedroom apartment. It's a nice apartment but of course is not ideal for our large family. Over the summer while my mom was still very coherent, she signed a transfer on death of her house, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, to me for myself, my boyfriend, and our children to move into. She did the transfer so I wouldn't have to buy the house as we would not be able to afford a loan for her house and her house only had less than a year left until it was completely paid off, so we would be able to afford her payments. That way all of my other siblings own their own homes and have plenty of room in their homes for their individual families. I didn't ask my other siblings if they were okay with this, but I didn't see it as their decision or whether they had a say considering it's our mom's house and she had final say anyway, and like I said, all of my siblings own their own homes anyway. Once my mom passed, she had some medical bills that needed taking care of, so it seemed as though we would need to sell the house to take care of them. After looking into it more, my boyfriend said he would buy the house at just enough to cover the medical bills rather than what it's worth, considering we cannot afford what it's worth. Plus my mom had planned on us just moving in and not doing any sort of loan anyway. She had a cash inheritance which she left my oldest sister, Melanie, 43F, to split equally among all of my siblings since my mom has passed. We have asked Melanie how much is left in the inheritance as it would be split 7 ways and she would always kind of dodge the question. She would say she hasn't counted it yet or she's unsure. My mom also had some coins that were worth some money. She had 4 coins worth about $3,200 and a 5th coin worth about $1,200. I only found out about these coins from my other sister, Rochelle, 35F, because she told me Melanie thought about giving a coin worth $3,200 to herself, Rochelle, my brother Nick, 37M, and myself the coin worth less to another hand-picked sibling, and then just never telling the last 2 siblings about the coins at all. That really upset me. I understand the coins gain value over time and that's why they didn't want to pawn them for cash to split equally, but that is really unfair, and considering there are not 7 coins, I believe the fairest situation would be to pawn them for cash so everyone could be involved. I suggested that and then never heard anything else about the coins after that. And then one day last week when I had Rochelle and my niece over for dinner, she dropped a gold coin out of her purse and quickly put it back. I never said anything, but I couldn't believe they decided to kick me out of that inheritance because I stuck up for the 3 siblings that were going to be slighted. Well, flash to a couple days ago, my boyfriend got approved for the loan. I told Melanie about this to keep her in the loop and her response shocked me. She told me she did not feel comfortable selling the house to my boyfriend. I didn't understand because selling the house to my boyfriend was just a way for us to keep the house so that my mom's medical bills would get paid, and my mom's wishes were for my family to move into the house. After I got off the phone with Melanie, I called Rochelle to see how she felt, but she couldn't talk right away. Once I was able to talk to Rochelle, it was very clear Melanie had gotten to her first and manipulated the situation, so I texted the group chat with my siblings. Essentially, they all want to sell the house at full value to a stranger so they can receive an inheritance of cash from the house. Selling Melanie had very obviously made them believe that my mom only transferred the house into my name so I could take care of selling it and splitting the money with all of my siblings. That wasn't the truth, and I tried telling them that our mom did not do that, but Melanie had manipulated the situation. For context, Melanie is the oldest and all of our siblings can be pretty easily manipulated in a situation. When it comes to Melanie, it sounds terrible, but it's true. I can see right through it and tried to say my side, but they are all on Melanie's side. They all want cash from the house, but I want to live in it like my mom had intended. Like I said, my mom transferred the house into my name, so I am going through with selling the house to my boyfriend to pay my mom's medical bills, and so us and our 4 children can live there. My siblings feel like I have scammed them out of an inheritance, but I feel like I found a way to get the medical bills paid so that my family can live there, which is what my mom intended when she was here. So am I the asshole? Update, Aita for not splitting my mom's inheritance with my siblings. So first I want to say I am so appreciative of all the comments that seemingly are truly looking out for my best interest. My oldest sister, Melanie, had made me believe that the debt needed to be paid from the house, not the cash estate. She would never disclose to us that there was enough to pay off my mom's medical bills. I contacted an estate attorney and ended up speaking with the attorney who was directly handling my mom's medical debts. He told me that there was no need to sell the house right now, that my family could move into it with no worry of paying the medical debt until the future if I ever decided to sell it. So that's what we are going to do if we ever decide to sell it, which I don't see right now why we would, as finding a 5-bedroom house is really hard to come by. We will split the sale of the house after her medical debts are paid and of course subtract any money we put into it going forward from their portion. I do agree that keeping the deed of the house in my name is the wise decision so that I will always have that security with my children if something were to ever happen between myself and my partner. I really appreciate all of the comments making that aware to me and all of the comments wanting to make sure I seeked out a lawyer. As far as the coins go, I didn't mention them because I was upset I wasn't getting a portion. I understand getting the house is a big deal. I mentioned what was happening with the coins to give an example as to why I don't feel I can trust Melanie and why I feel like she is not being honest about the money and the estate, which she wasn't. There is more money than just the coins. That she is not being honest about the deceptiveness is what hurts me. I feel like I am very open and honest with my family and would never try to deceive them. I would rather all conversations, especially with my family, hold integrity. Once I had felt settled and secure with talking to the lawyer, I texted my sibling group chat to let them know what was going on, that the house will stay in my name. Melanie has been manipulating the situation, and once she thought I was selling it to my boyfriend, I knew she would tell all my other siblings that the problem is not that I was keeping the house but that it would no longer be in my name. I can tell she is very angry that she can longer spin the story for her narrative, but this is what my mom had intended in the first place, for myself and my children to have somewhere to live, and she always knew my boyfriend was in our package deal. Melanie still seems mad, but I don't see the problem anymore. I'll keep this post updated if anything else happens to come up again. Thank you to everyone for the advice, it really helped me out so much and put me in a much more secure position. Update, Aita for not splitting my mom's inheritance with my siblings. I don't have too much of an update currently, however I don't think I'll have another update again until next week, and I want to keep you guys in the loop of what is going on since I have told Melanie that we plan on keeping the house. She has made it her mission, at least how I see it, to do everything in her power to bury me. Melanie is my big sister by 15 years, so I've always trusted what she said and done naively. I guess like I've said before, Melanie was my mom's power of attorney, so she made sure my mom's bills got paid toward the end, as that was her responsibility. Once I told Melanie we would be keeping the house, she would tell me she didn't have my mom's account information and withheld all the information I needed to pay her bills. I made all the phone calls and all utilities were easily transferred into my name. However, going to the bank of course was a little more difficult. I can't even make a payment without knowing her account number. Melanie has kept all of my mom's paperwork and refuses to give me that information, so I am currently in the process of waiting for the bank to email me a form to fill out to become a person on her account that can make payments. Then once that hopefully gets accepted, I can apply for assumption of her account. I am hoping all of this goes over well with no bumps. Melanie is very angry with me. I told her I didn't feel like she was being fair in the way she was dividing the estate, and that she continues to change the story to fit her narrative for that day or who she is talking to. I told all of my siblings they could go through my mom's house still if they wanted anything of hers before we donate. Everybody has had a key to my mom's house because we would all go over and help her with anything she needed. Melanie then went through the house to take all of the valuables, collectibles, anything that could be sold for decent money so she could sell it herself and pocket it all. Mind you, I'm not talking about a couple of small trinkets. She took 4 large glass/real wood curio cabinets, 20 collectible cookie jars, at least 100 collectible angels, and she did all of this in one day as soon as she found out I would be keeping the house. So I asked my boyfriend to change the locks and he did. I'm so glad he did because I found out that they had been talking about taking the fridge and the stove. Since then, my boyfriend believes that they have been coming over daily to check the trash. They are crazy. Once she found out the locks had been changed, she truly tried to isolate me from my siblings and my dad. They are really the only family I have left. Unfortunately, they are all very easily manipulated. Truthfully, I don't really want to try to reconcile my relationship with them if they are so easily manipulated into cutting me out of their lives. And yes, she manipulated my dad as well. I lost my mom only a month and a half ago, and now in the snap of a finger I've lost everyone else. It's been very hard to deal with. But I truly don't feel as though I'm in the wrong here. Maybe my post seems biased, but I don't feel like I am withholding any information. I also contacted the lawyer who drew up the transfer on death so that I could make an appointment with her to finalize it now that my mom has passed. I also asked her if we could discuss my mom's estate. She then told me that no estate had been filed. I also contacted the probate court in our county to get a hold of my mom's will, and they also told me no will had been documented with them. All of that was Melanie's responsibility. It isn't right. I will definitely come back with an update end of January/beginning of February, as I have an appointment with the lawyer to discuss this next week. Stories number 22. I'll message her so no one leaves this situation winning. Ex-boyfriend and I broke about 2 months ago after 3 years, and part of it was due to the fact that he still had feelings for his old best friend who just so happened to be popping in and out of his life our entire relationship. They met up after we broke up, but she had no idea we broke up. She told him she still liked him and was willing to try it out with him if he wanted to. He said we were still together and that she should back off. She didn't, and they met again. They kissed, but she told him she needed to take time to herself because she got her hopes up when they met up the first time. Since then him and I have been in contact accidentally and purposely and have hooked up a couple times. If I'm hurt about the situation, IDGAF, she'll be hurt too. She's gonna know about everything he's done since they expressed their feelings to each other. That way she knows he's not over me and I'm still on his mind. May everyone end up feeling how I felt. If I gotta deal with the consequences of their actions, they'll deal with them too. Stories number 23. Aita for refusing to cut my father, stepdad, out of my life when my mother came to see me in the hospital. I 30 female had a very rough upbringing as a child. My mother was 16 when she had me. My birth father isn't in my life and disowned me from birth. She took care of me most of my life with the help of my grandmother and her various boyfriends over the years. Though my mother was abusive to me and accused me many times of the reason her boyfriends never worked out. Fast forward a few years, she met my now father 51M, who has been there for me through thick and thin and protected me from my mother's abuse. Before I was 16 he was the one to keep the peace when my mother had her episodes. I swear she's bipolar and ADHD but refuses to talk to someone about this, and when my younger brother and sister were born he was the one to make sure I never felt unwanted. Fast forward to when I turned 16 a week later, my mother kicked me out and cut contact with me to limited, stating it was because he didn't want me part of the family anymore, but this was her version as he continued to support me and offered financial aid when I needed it for school. After several years they broke up, and filed for separation, but I told them both I wouldn't take sides and that I would be there for my brother and sister who weren't even teenagers yet. This upset my mother and her side of the family that they completely cut me out of the family for 12 years. Fast forward again to now. This past year of 2023 to 2024 I have been diagnosed with a rare blood clotting disorder that causes me to clot easily in my body with minimal injuries. It got worse as 2024 came around and I was hospitalized for many months because I was diagnosed with 8 clots on my lungs. My other half and his family were amazing and supportive throughout this scary time of my life. I decided to try and reach out to my grandmother and my mother again. At first they seemed hesitant because they knew I was still in contact with my father, but they got over it and came to see me and spend time with me in the hospital. That is till one day my mother said that if I was still in contact with my father that she would cut me off for good and never speak with me again. At the time it was stressful and I needed my family's support and wanted them there, so I cut contact with him for a few months, which I know now wasn't right of me. I had to be transferred to another hospital and had to have a 10-hour surgery to remove the clots from my lungs as I was now in heart failure. After the surgery I stayed in the hospital for about 2 weeks until I was discharged. When I called my mother to let her know I was arranging for a way home when she piped up and said she would come get me, which was no small feat as she lived 3 to 4 hours away from the major hospital I was staying in. At the time she seemed okay with coming and getting me, but after she arrived I told her the plans my other half and his parents had offered to let me stay with them as they have an elevator and I live in a 3-story apartment building with no elevator, and at the time I was very weak on my legs. She became very upset and said I was coping out and being a weak because I wouldn't attempted the 3 flights of stairs after major open chest surgery. I explained that even the physiotherapist in the hospital and doctors said it was a good idea till I was feeling strong enough to attempt the steps. She because physically upset and demanded I get dressed and ready to go. The whole car ride home was uncomfortable and I could see she texted my grandmother demanding she take me the rest of the way home after they met so she didn't have to see my other half and his parents. For context, I did tell her my other half and his dad offered to meet half way for her and take me the rest of the way home, but she refused and said she didn't mind. Once I finally was home I hoped that my mother and I could rebuild our relationship, but she started a pity party over text with me one night, and since she been strained with her texted I have since reached back out to my father and we are now back to speaking after I explained the situation and made my point that I wanted them both in my life, but I refuse to be a spy for either of them, which he fully respects and just wants to make sure I'm okay and I'm doing what's best for my health. My sister is the only one besides myself who is in contact with my father and mother since I got in contact with my father again. My mother has gone back to her strained little to no texts contact with me or generally not caring at all. I recently went back to the hospital again for a complication with my medications and her side of the family didn't reach out to me or seem like they cared. My father's side, though, even if I'm not blood, has continued to love and cherish me like one of their own. I would love some advice on what I should do regarding all this, as my mother seems to control the narrative around her side of the family. Should I cut off my father and his side and risk losing his love and my brother, or should I just let it go and not worry about all this? Thank you for the advice ahead of time. Update: Aita for refusing to cut my father, stepdad, out of my life when my mother demanded it while I was hospitalized. First, I want to thank everyone who commented and read my post. I took the time and read through each and every comment and sat down and talked it over with my other half and his family. I have decided to go low contact with my mother and grandmother based on what she has done to me in my past and how she is now still trying to control me. Recently, with the new year, I was again hospitalized due to anemia and now having a rare blood type due to my antigens around my blood cells, so I had to remain in the hospital for a few weeks over New Year's. During this time I did reach out to my family. This included my mother, grandmother, siblings, and my father. My mother just seemed happy to have updates but never gave me any advice or guidance or bothered to come and see me for the few weeks I was in the hospital again. My grandmother kept promising to come see me, but that kept changing based on her mood. TBH, the only ones who did seem concerned was my other half's family and my father and siblings. The moment I texted him, he instantly texted me and asked me why and where I was. Unfortunately, with how the weather is and where I live versus where he lives, it's harder for him to come down and see me at this time of the year, so we have made plans to see each other in the summer. I know a few people did ask a few questions regarding a few things and I will try my best to answer those questions. Any and all information I have on my biological father was told to me by my grandmother and mother from when I was a child till now as an adult. It's unfortunate, but it's all I know, and they never kept contact with anyone from his side. My other half did buy me a DNA test kit, so I am looking forward for the test results soon. If I have an update on this I will post again. Some things I didn't mention before was that my mother did try and convince me that my other half was trying to poison me and make me sick for insurance claims. She was convinced that the food he was making me was poisoned, and she had somehow convinced 12 other people of this fact as well, people that don't know anything about me or my life except through her. I told her that it's not possible as he loves me. She has had no respect for him or his family since the day. 12 years again. he stood up against her for my sake because I was in the midst of a panic attack because of my decision to see my father and siblings when she had separated from him. But she didn't know that I actually have life insurance on him and on myself, which she has no right to, so if something were to happen to me she has no right to it. Since these facts and all the comments, I have decided to stay low contact with her and my grandmother. It does hurt because it just feels like they couldn't convince me to do what they wanted, but TBH I don't care because I'm happy and healthy and living my life with my spouse who I love. It's their choice if they want to continue the low contact or if they want to be in my life, as many of you had commented. Thank you again everyone, and if I have an update regarding them or the DNA test results I'll make sure to come and post. Thank you again everyone. Edit. I forgot to mention that I have decided not to cut off my father. It will take time, but we are going to try and rebuild our bond. One apologized and made sure to text him after reading everyone's comments and tell him how much I love and appreciate him in my life. Stories number 24. Aita for telling my husband Happy Father's Day today because it felt like I was doing it all alone today. This morning I woke up early to order myself coffee so he could take our son to pick it up and surprise me. Then they went to the grocery store and thoughtfully picked out my favorite breakfast and came home. My husband made half of the breakfast and then asked me to make the other half. No problem. He acknowledged that he was asking me to do the work and still taking credit for the benefit of our kids' experience and memories. It was no problem until he went upstairs to go to the bathroom, and after 45 minutes I walked upstairs to check on him and he was asleep in our bed. He slept the entire afternoon. Later that day I was doing the absolute mountain of dishes, my third load for the day. That's another story. And he asked me to make a grocery list. I asked if he could please make the list because I am in the middle of doing the dishes, and further tried to coax him by using Mother's Day in a playful way. I really didn't want to drop what I was doing to look in the fridge. He was already standing right in front of to tell him what we needed for dinner. He knows what the ingredients are. He could easily look himself, but he insisted I help him. I was super frustrated, so I took a deep breath, washed and dried my hands, and then opened the fridge and started telling him what we need. He could sense my frustration and called me on it. I explained that I was really hoping he could make a list himself just this once because I was in the middle of doing the dishes. I explained that when I make a grocery list I just look at what we have and write down what we don't have, and I didn't understand why he needed my help. He started talking over me to say if I had a problem making a grocery list with him I should just have told him. I told him that I did communicate that with him. He doubled down and told me that I need to learn some patience. I smiled and said, Happy Father's Day, because it was the nicest thing I could think to say. That completely set him off. He went off on me, refused to get ingredients to make our dinner, bought dinner for only himself and our kids, and has been giving me the silent treatment for over an hour. He says I went too far. Aita. ETA, wow, I did not realize I was going to wake up to so much to read. Thank you for all of your feedback. I have been enjoying my self-brewed coffee this morning and taking in your responses. I have a lot to look over and think about. I know divorce is the obvious answer. Edit 2. No, divorce isn't the obvious answer for this specific incident. Edit 3. I mean, the idea of divorce is not solely based on this one specific incident. Several people have commented thinking everyone is jumping to divorce based on this one situation. It is more complex than this one day. No, I'm not using Reddit as a poll for whether or not to leave my marriage. Till how to make Reddit paragraphs. Both of our mothers are dead, unfortunately. Our children are 6 and under. It is common for parents to help and facilitate the day. 6-year-olds and toddlers can't be responsible for celebrating their parents. I didn't expect anything from him. I know it's just a Hallmark consumerism holiday. People who have commented are correct in saying that this incident is just representative of every other day, but magnified by the fact that Mother's Day was a particularly shitty day to choose to be particularly shitty. I felt like maybe I was TA for making the petty comment. I am ND and sometimes I have trouble picking up on if I did something wrong that I maybe didn't realize was wrong to say or do. I appreciate all of the anecdotes of your strength and ability to move forward after leaving an exhausting marriage. It is inspiring. Since Sunday I have not lifted a single finger for baby Sinclair, my internal nickname for him, unless it directly impacts our kids. Every time he requests my help or to do something for him that he can do himself, I just use my absolute sweetest voice, let him know he doesn't need my help and I believe in his ability to complete the task himself. Then I smile and walk away. The third time I did this, he said I was making him uneasy. I could not help but to LOL, which made him announce that he felt more uneasy. I know it wasn't kind, but I calmly told him he is a pathetic human. I told him I'm sorry it has to be me, but someone in his life needs to tell him to grow the fuck up. I told him I care about him and I love him, but I will not tolerate being treated with disrespect even one more day. He said I am abusive. The actual audacity. I spared the divorce conversation, for safety and because I have said many times before I want to leave and financially it isn't possible right now. Side note, I tried to leave last year because he was making me feel unsafe and his behavior was erratic. I went to the emergency room in a mental breakdown and told them about the abuse, which they noted in detail on my file. They asked about any plans to escape and I told them I had it covered, and answered their questions about my plan. I had been planning for our escape for a year leading up to this. They told me they had to document the reported abuse in my file. I asked them to check my chart to make sure it is not tied to his account. They looked at it in front of me and said they made sure he wasn't on my emergency contacts or attached to my chart in any way. But then guess who got an email with my chart notes detailing his abuse and my exit plan before I even got home? I had to cool things down and start over with a new plan that I kept entirely to myself at this point though. He knew I had saved up money to leave, so most of my savings was depleted within a couple of months. I eventually left with our kids with far less savings, and it didn't take long for me to realize I could not sustain the cost of my original bills, still in my name, and new bills in addition to legal assistance and the overall cost of starting over. Our leaving caused him to spiral and he went back to therapy soon after. We started to dip our toes into visiting each other, mostly because I didn't want to leave our kids with him. We stuck to outdoor public activities as a family. He has always been able to wear me down and talk me out of a divorce, and this ended up no differently. Even though I know I'm not an anomaly, I felt ashamed and like a complete failure for going back. Surprisingly, he never actually changed. End of side note. Anyway, back to present day. I began to gray rock to throw off his cycle of attempting to rope me back into the argument from the other day. I have calmly listened to him gush over his love for our family, and how much he loves and appreciates me and thinks I am an amazing mom. He says he loves me, but all I hear in my head is his voice screaming, "Fucking bitch," at me. It all sounds so obviously disingenuous. I told him his words mean literally nothing while his behavior is the same. It's like saying waffles have legs. It sounds unbelievable, and if I don't see it with my own eyes, I'm not believing it. I told him regardless of if in the end we stay together or not, we need to go back to therapy as a duo and separately. I told him he needs to take steps today to move forward with therapy and treating his mental health appropriately. He agreed, but no evidence of walking waffles yet. I am surprised at my ability to completely refuse to do anything he can do himself. I'm more surprised that he's actually doing the tasks himself. I have tried this before and he ultimately bullies me into doing the task. Not this time. He keeps complaining about his results in ways that are so juvenile and manipulative, always leaving the impression that if I had just done it for him it would have been done correctly. I just smile and tell him he did a good job with the task and tell him that it sounds like he needs more practice and eventually it will become second nature. I am feeling his attempts to make me miserable, but it is rolling right off of me, at least for now. I cannot express enough how much I appreciate the support and validation here. I appreciate the married people who have shared what their day was like on Sunday, and every day, as a healthy couple. For those of you who have asked why I am taking to the internet with this in the first place, I have been isolated from my circle for so long. My relationships no longer exist. I have limited family period, and no family nearby. My mom is dead. My dad sucks. My siblings mostly suck. I have no friends. I work virtually and don't have friendships with my coworkers because we rarely socialize and have opportunities to bond. One don't have opportunities to interact with adults very often. Isn't that the beauty of the internet? Despite my logical brain, years of gaslighting along with my neurodivergence have made it sometimes feel impossible to trust my own judgment. If you are offended by me posting this and have taken the time to voice your disgust for me and my post, I just want to let you know I have processed your complaints and directed them to the correct department. Thank you for your feedback. Update. A lot has happened since my original post. First, since Mother's Day he has not shown any sort of attempts for progress. Surprise. He has lost his control and repeatedly called me a fucking bitch and other awesome pet names for his minor irritations towards me. Example, I asked him if he wanted my help bringing in groceries. Apparently he wanted to do it himself to let me relax, and my offering ruined his plan, so he was essentially throwing an adult version of a tantrum. I explained that it doesn't feel like a genuine gesture, especially because now I'm being yelled at for offering to help. LOL. Okay, pal. At one point I became petty, whoops, and told him to use I statements, because that's his go-to therapy speak, that he uses on me as a dog whistle during arguments and therapy appointments. He lost his shit, which then made me laugh because I literally do not understand if this is really his perception of reality. I can't take him seriously. I find myself laughing more now than ever, and it's not to mock him. I just can't control my disbelief and don't know how else to cope at this point. Second, I have realized that while I do love and care about him, it is clear that he does not respect me as a person, a mother, or his partner. He doesn't respect our kids. I can't realistically continue living with someone who tries to control my entire life. What kind of life is that to live? I took advice from many comments left on my original post and reached out to friends and family. I had been isolated from the reception was better than I anticipated. I didn't expect the hurt I felt when I found out. Every single one of them said they wondered if I was in an abusive marriage, but not one of them ever asked me directly when I completely withdrew. I don't blame them, but it was hard to ignore the pain I felt from that. This was also a reason I never reached out to anyone when things got really bad. It seemed like they have their own lives to worry about and clearly weren't concerned about my absence. A couple of the people I reached out to were lifelong friends that I had to formally end friendships with when I started dating my husband because of his jealousy, and I never got to mourn those friendships. It felt like a piece me that had been broken began to heal. Anyway, it was a positive step because some of my family members were relieved I opened up to them, and now I don't feel so isolated and alone. So thank you to everyone who encouraged me to do that. 4. I am not sure what my next steps are, but I am feeling more confident in my path forward. I do know that from here on out I'm doing whatever the fuck I want, DW, as safely as I can. Thank you. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I'm glad for you. I'd like to point out something. Some of these friends who didn't reach out when you withdrew may have not known how to do it, or were afraid you would reject them. I'm sure they are genuinely glad that you are reaching out again. Give them a chance to be your friends. Commenter 2. Sorry, but I'm fucking sick of people like OP pretending like they would have taken it well or even decently if friends had actually asked that. Reply. I'm not pretending I would have taken it well. I even said I don't blame them. I understand from their perspective it would have been extremely tricky. I understand that I am the one who drifted away from them. I understand I can see a situation logically and feel pain at the same time. Edit. I think the pain I felt really had nothing to do with my friends and family and everything to do with the fact that I felt like I was crazy for so long. I thought everyone thought he was a great person. My pain was partly disappointment in myself for not seeing what everyone else saw. Commenter 3. I had a question from your last post. Did the hospital on purpose send him your file notes? Can you sue? Reply. They specifically informed me he was not attached to my chart, but they did not remove him, and instead he got my after-visit summary sent right to his email after the visit, which contained all of the details. New update. 246 days ago I posted asking Aita for telling my husband Happy Father's Day today because it felt like I was doing it all alone today. I knew I was in an abusive marriage, but I was stuck. I continued to be stuck until it escalated beyond return. I wanted to update to show how things can escalate. The very next month after my original post, he pushed me down backwards on the stairs. The month after that, he started threatening his life if I didn't stay with him. The month after that, he started looking into buying a gun. The month after that, he was physically extremely violent to me in front of our kids and emotionally violent towards them. Police were called multiple nights in a row. My kids and I have been staying at someone else's house since mid-November. We left with a weekend's worth of clothes each, toothbrushes, and some of their favorite toys that I could quickly grab. We are starting completely over and it feels very weird from my previous post. He drained the savings I had accumulated to escape with my kids. I am in the process of finding a new job and have a GFM open as a desperate attempt at leaning on community. As weird and scary as this process has been, I have never felt safer. My kids have never been happier. Relevant comments. Is you in contact with any lawyers? I have been in contact with a women's association here that has legal counsel, but it's limited right now. I have a protection order that is valid for the next few months and continuing to work towards officially divorcing and an official parenting plan. ETA. Thank you. Commenter. How did he get access to your account? And was there no way to get it back in the divorce, since you can prove he took everything, when he was only entitled to half? Reply. I don't know about getting it back in the divorce. I would need to talk to a lawyer about that, and I am still in the process of doing that through a non-profit. Commenter 2. You're saying the emergency room, as in the hospital staff questioned you about the abuse and wanted to make sure you had an exit plan and know what it was, but then while you were driving home from said emergency room they had already emailed everything you said directly to your husband. Something seems off here. If they did do that, you know that's very illegal, right? Like that's a HIPAA violation, which is pretty damn serious. If they did that, why haven't you reached out to a lawyer yet? That would be my first step going forward. Reply. The system automatically emailed him my visit notes. We specifically talked about it during my visit and they specifically said he was no longer attached to my chart, but he ended up getting the chart notification and detailed chart notes nonetheless. Commenter 2. I'd be pushing for no visitation until he's completed a psych eval proving he isn't a danger to himself or others, threatening suicide and looking into buying a gun. Yeah. He's either threatening suicide as a control measure, which will 100% focusing on weaponsing the kids, or he'll take himself out, either in front of or just after he takes them with him. That is full caps literally psychotic behavior. Reply. I went to court 4 times to try for that. The judge wouldn't order him because he already said in court that he had planned to go. The last hearing was a month ago. Guess who hasn't been to therapy yet? Ugh. Stories number 25. Wibta for telling my husband's BF's wife that he is cheating on her. Hello. So my husband, M25, has been friends with Harris, M25, for almost 15 years now. Harris's wife, F24, Mona, and I have become really good friends since all 4 of us hang out a lot. And I have gotten to know them together for 4 years. About a couple of days ago I was out with my girlfriends to a bar where I had seen Harris with another girl. I initially didn't think too much about it and was about to go say hi to him until I saw him get really cozy up with this girl and it fully threw me off. Harris and Mona have been together for almost 8 years, and never did I ever feel that he would do something like this. So that same night I told my husband what had happened, and I told him that I am telling Mona, to which he told me no, it's none of our business. I feel like this is something to do with a bro code or something, but if I were ever in her place I would absolutely would want to know. Mona is absolutely amazing, my husband and I actually got into an argument when I insisted that either Harris tells her himself or I will. He insisted that he will talk to Harris and talk some sense, but not to tell his wife. I think he fears that he will lose his best friend in the process, and he is not ready to do that, but I can't help but feel guilty whenever I have seen her, since Harris senses that something is off, as I haven't been the jokey self that I usually am with him, and even asked if I am okay. I just can't look at this man the same way now. So will I be an asshole if I tell Mona and ruin the relationship that Harris and my husband have? Stories number 26. How long till you feel sure about someone? I've been seeing this guy for a few months now, and I've been unsure about us being right for each other long term. I enjoy his company, we get along well, and I'm definitely developing feelings for him. He has some amazing positive traits and has treated me well so far. He has also made concrete efforts to meet my needs every time I express them, becoming more responsive, frequent in communicating with me, opening up about his past, seeing each other more. He's warm, loving, and tries to make my life a little bit easier, which I'm not used to, but man is it nice. Then why don't I feel sure about him? Every time I feel the need to push a little further in the relationship, I spend days pondering whether to do it, if it's worth it, and whether he'll halt me and respond poorly. Still hasn't happened. I want him to ask about me, but every time he does, rarely, but it has become a little more frequent, I stumble upon my words. I'm used to having very close friends with whom I have deep, long, sometimes existential conversations with, and it's just not happening with him. When I don't see him for a while, I start feeling like he's a stranger. And then it goes away when we meet up, just to come back later. I'm alone on this roller coaster. He seems absolutely fine with how things are, stable, reliable even. But I still don't feel sure this is right for me, sure he's trustworthy, sure we have a common ground on how we see the world, sure that I a good grasp of who this person is at his core. I thought it was normal at this stage, but I recently talked to some friends and they told me they were sure, or at least sure enough, pretty early on. So I come here to ask, how long does it take for you to feel that sureness about the person you're seeing? Have you ever had this kind of feelings, and how did it turn out in the end? Comments. My first question would be to ask what your past relationships were like. If they were toxic, had poor boundaries, were emotionally immature, etc. in some way, then anything that is steady, healthy, respectful, and responsive is going to feel alien and uncertain. The next question is, how emotionally available are you? And answer that honestly, because if you are typically used to someone else driving the relationship forward and cracking you like a nut, then when you're faced with something that waits for your cues and puts you in the driver's seat, you're going to sit there idling. Link. Reply. Thank you for asking this. I've been out of the dating scene for a very long time, hit rock bottom, made some very positive changes in my life, thank God for therapy, and after a while went into dating for something casual, which is how things started with this guy, but then they became exclusive and progressed because I liked him. I have been described as avoidant by a couple exes, as, come closer but hey not too close. That said, I walked into this completely aware of what I did wrong in the past, and willing to open up and be emotionally available. Maybe this is just me finding out that wanting to be open, actually being open, are two different things. I am okay with doing that, but it feels like I'm waiting for some kind of cue from him that he'd care to know more about me, and I'm not getting it. I think you're spot on about being used to having the other person driving the relationship forward. Funny enough, I don't respond well to that either. Link. Other comment. In my last relationship I took months to feel totally sure about my guy, and as soon as I did he dumped me. The apprehension really didn't do anything good for me, so I feel this in my bones. It takes me a long time to trust and get on board with new people. If I were in your shoes, I would try to move forward with an open heart, but if you start having serious reservations, you shouldn't ignore that. Link. Update. How long till you feel sure about someone? First of all, so many of you guys were spot on, some other people weren't, but every comment helped me figure out how I felt and how to proceed. I thought about breaking things off, and the idea pained me. So instead I did something I was still not 100% comfortable with. I introduced him to a friend, and I know it can sound lame, but in my adult life I'd never gotten to the point where I was able to get over the anxiety of other people's judgment over my choices in partners. This time I wanted to push through. So first I asked him, my friend invited me to go meet his new girlfriend, wanna join? I was sure he'd come up with an excuse not to. Instead he agreed right away. He checked more than once the day and time, because, in his words, I don't want to be late and embarrass you in front of your friends. I was expecting to be struck by some huge flaw of his I hadn't noticed before. Instead he was lovely the whole night. He insisted to pay for drinks. He got along well with and his girlfriend. On our way back he said had told him something along the lines of, OP is a nice person and I can see she's found a good guy, so cheesy, and he was so goddamn happy to have received those words of affirmation from someone so close to me. I could see it. I realized he had known for a while that R was my ex and he had never expressed jealousy or controlling behavior. Instead he said, "I can see you're happy around him and I'm glad you have such a good friend," and he meant it. Then it clicked. I realized I had been expecting the worst of this poor guy since the day I met him, and all he had shown me was kindness and care. The more I grew to like him, the more I got panicky and thought the whole thing was destined to turn sour. Based on what evidence? When a condom broke and we had to discuss what we do in case of pregnancy, and I was afraid his religion would make him rule out abortion, he took my hands and said we'd do what I wanted, and he'd be there either way. When I got the chance to score a new big client, he asked me about every development and said he was sure I'd get it, because I'm smart, capable and hardworking. When the handle of my fridge broke, he fixed it. When I first told him about the reasons I've been in therapy for the last 2 years, he was warm and accepting. He asked when is my birthday. 2 weeks after I met him he's asked to meet more of my friends when his health was acting up and I was worried that if something happened to him I'd never know. He gave my number to one of his friends and told him to contact me if he ever was in a situation where he couldn't. He has cooked for me and made sure I have enough leftovers to bring to work the next day. After our first few weeks together, he kissed me on the eyes, and I jokingly told him what my mother taught me: when you kiss someone on the eyes, it's the last time you'll see them. He has never done that again. That's the evidence I had that made me so distrustful. I did it all on my own. I felt like such an idiot. I was such an idiot. But after that night, it just clicked. I was relieved. I took a deep breath and relaxed, and it worked like magic. Everything fell into place. We're going out more, we're talking more. I can actually fall asleep next to him. A few nights ago we were joking and I told him, "By the way, I think you're my boyfriend now." No answer. "If you agree." I was almost ready to retreat and pass it as a big joke. He laughed and said, "You were my girlfriend since the first night I spent with you." Not a hint of resentment. It made my heart ache. That's it. I still don't know where this is headed, but I'm okay with just letting it play out and live in the moment. But at least now I'm sure this is the person I want to be with right now. Stories number 27. Aita for abandoning my BF on a trip 5 hours away with no way home. Last year I, 24F, was dating a guy, 28M, for about 4 months. At the start, he was honest and said he'd only split from his ex a few months ago, which I was fine with as I was in a similar situation, as long as he was honest with me and obviously had no contact with her. Anyway, 4 months in, he had a sports competition up north, a 5-hour drive from where I lived, 6 hours for him. He lived an hour south from me. We were making a weekend out of it, and I offered to drive us, as it was one less thing for him to stress about. Anyway, we get there, all is good, had a lovely evening the night before his comp. Life is good. The morning of his competition, he says, "We may have a situation." He explains that last night his ex messaged him good luck on Insta. No problem with that, I thought, but then he goes on to explain that he was worried because she wasn't home. He could see from her Insta stories. At this point I was a bit confused on what the relevance of that was, but he says she's had a habit of turning up randomly before. He went on a trip somewhere else once and she turned up unexpected. At this point I'm a bit concerned, but I keep my cool, as she is sounding a bit like a psycho and that's not his fault. So I ask what he expects me to do if she does turn up. What's the procedure? Will she kick off? That sort of thing. He then says he wouldn't want to hurt her feelings and joked about how he would lie and say I'm his friend's cousin, and wouldn't want to tell her to keep the peace. I say, "So you just expect me to sit next to her like nothing?" And I just get no reply. I'm obviously starting to get a little emotional. I don't want to cause a scene, so I leave. I thought, fuck this, if she turns up, she can drive him home. He is obviously choosing her over me. So I leave the venue, go back to the hotel, grab my stuff and leave him there. In the end it took him 8 hours to get home, 2 coach rides, a hitchhike and a taxi. His ex never turned up. Fast forward to today, a year later. We met last week after not speaking the entire week. After he messaged me to say he'd been thinking about me. However, it became clear he still didn't believe he did anything wrong, and that his friends think I'm an asshole, and showed my age by leaving him there. But when I asked what he expected me to do instead in that situation, he had no answer. Was I in the wrong here? My friends think he's an idiot, and I was fine to leave, but now I'm not so sure. Stories number 28. My husband, 29M, keeps calling me 29F, and dog murderer. Obvious trigger warning: dog death and mention of suicide. 7 years ago I got a call from my husband at work saying he needed his headphones and asked me to come drop them off for him at work. I brought his dog along with me to say hi. I rolled down the window so our dog could smell outside. At a stoplight, he saw a family walking by and jumped out of the window. Getting hit by multiple cars, I rushed him to the vet ER, but he passed away on site. It was extremely traumatizing for me and I was diagnosed with PTSD. He only outwardly blamed me for his dog's death once after it happened. It's coming back up now and it's nearly an everyday thing where he calls me a dog killer. It's not like he's processing it. Through therapy, He never has, so it's not like it's coming back up there. This is out the blue. He keeps talking to our current dog saying things like, "Don't go in the car with mom, she'll kill ya." He does stuff like this all the time, blaming me for losing his things, his mental health, financial situations. We know he needs therapy, but when he went for a year, he wouldn't talk to the doctor. I'm so tired of him breaking me down, but he's my husband. Is this a deal breaker? I feel like this is something you'd get a divorce over, but he's also told me that I'm the only thing keeping him alive. He'd likely commit if I left him. Should I leave him or try and work this out with him? Stories number 29. Mess with my baby sister and find out. I, 22F, have a sister Amy, 18F. A few years ago Amy had been in a car crash and lost her vision. We got her a service dog named Rex. Rex was a sweet and loving boy, went everywhere where Amy went. While with Amy he minded his own business, and regularly when he was off duty he would never go to people himself and let others come to him. One day my sister had gone to a cafe. There was a couple over there who might have been sitting pretty far away from my sister. The guy came out of nowhere and told my sister to get out, said that Rex was a safety hazard and his boo-boo bear, date, was scared of dogs. My sister told him that Rex was a sweetheart and reassured them. The guy got mad and caused a huge scene. The management was useless, so rather than calming that man down they chose to kick my disabled sister out. It had started pouring outside, and when my sister came home she was soaking wet. I wanted to do something but I was helpless. A few weeks later, me and my sister went to a mall. We went and sat somewhere. A guy was behind us talking to someone on the phone. My sister was extremely good at remembering voices. She told me that it was the same boo-boo bear guy. That's when a girl came up to him and kissed him. I saw that boo-boo bear was somewhere around 14 and the guy looked 20. I knew what to do. I called the cops and told them that we had a Drake situation. I couldn't speak freely. The responder understood and sent 2 cops. Sad for boo-boo bear and her lover boy. The cops exactly came when they were kissing. The cops beat him when he tried to resist arrest and they went to jail with girl tagging along. Stories number 30. My ex refuses our 7-year-old sunblock as she believes it causes cancer. So a bit of context first. We live in Australia. The sun is hot and the UV index is usually extreme. My 38M, ex, 39F, in the last year or so now believes that all sunblock causes cancer and refuses to let our 7-year-old daughter wear it. We have 50-50 custody, week on week off. This is a fairly new opinion of hers, and I'm guessing is the influence of her new partner of 1 year. According to my child, both of them and his 2 kids, 13 and 16, aren't allowed to / don't wear sunblock and all love sun tanning. They also live across the road from a beach, so are always there. After my ex initially told me that sunblock causes cancer and she would no longer let our daughter wear it, firstly I tried to explain that that's nonsense, but she refused to listen to reason. I left it at, well, sunburn has been scientifically proven to cause skin cancer, so if you are refusing to put sunblock on our daughter she just can't get burnt. That means she'll always need a hat, long sleeves etc. at the beach and can't be out in the sun long. This was probably 6 months ago. Fast forward to 2 months ago, they are all at a water park / camping ground and she sends me a photo of my daughter having fun, which I am grateful for, but she is only wearing a bikini, no hat, no sun cream, no long sleeves. Upon handover she is returned to my dad's house as it's school holidays and she is so badly burnt that she is blistered on her shoulders, neck and back. She is in pain for days. My dad's wife tells my ex that if that happens again she will report her as it is abuse. My ex's response is to look straight at our daughter and say, "I told you to stay in the shade." She still doesn't seem to care and explains it causes cancer, taking no responsibility. Fast forward to last night. My ex blows up at me for showing our daughter a photo of a leather-skinned old lady who never wears sunblock and suntans after she asking me why I thought sun tanning was bad. My ex said I was instilling fear into our daughter to stop her doing things they all love doing together. My daughter understands that sunblock works and is safe to use. She wants to wear it and has even asked if she can sneak a small roll-on in her backpack to her mom's house as she is too scared to ask her if she can wear it and sneak it on before she goes out to the beach. I'm worried for my daughter's well-being, the mental stress of it all, and that she will keep getting burnt or even worse her head will be filled with this nonsense. Reddit, please help me. What can I do? Stories number 31. Would I be the for not forgiving my abusive older sister after all this time? I read these types of Reddit posts all the time or watch them on one app or the other, but I never thought I'd be the one telling a story till now. Sorry for the word vomit, there's a lot to tell. Background and context. I, 26, am adopted, been adopted since I was a day old, and my adopted parents are a lot older than most 26-year-olds are. Mom, 68, dad, 89. My dad was married before he met and married my mom and has 2 bio kids, brother, 61, sister, 60, so I never grew up in the same house as my siblings, basically making me an only child. Due to this, we've never been particularly close. The beginning context actually starts when I was 22 and when I was living in the apartment underneath said sister, who was living in the house our dad owned because he moved during COVID. During COVID the only thing I and my BF at the time had to do, since we were on lockdown, was mow and trim the lawn every 2 weeks and take out the trash every week on one random day in the smack dab middle of COVID. My BF and I went out to buy groceries around 5 p.m., our sleep schedules were messed up bad since we had no structure. When we got back and my sister, we will call her S, was angrily pulling the lawn mower out of the garage, we got out of the car and went to go ask her what was wrong, since mowing the lawn was our job, and she, out the get-go, started yelling at us about, why haven't we mown the lawn yet? Why didn't we do it this morning at 6:30 a.m.? Again, our schedules were messed up. We had gone to sleep around 5 a.m. and woken up at 3:30 p.m. We tried to explain, in vain, that we had woken up in the heat of the day and we were waiting until it got cooler. She, as you can suspect, either didn't listen to our explanation or didn't care and just started to yell louder, specifically at me, about how I'm lazy and incompetent and do nothing but play video games all day. I didn't want to take the verbal poison she was spitting, so I went back to my BF's car to calm down and get away from her. She yelled after me and my BF held her back, not physically, oh, yes. Run away like you always do. Not once have I ever run away from her yelling at me, because this was the first time my whole life she had done so. I took 5 minutes to calm down and then remembered that my BF and I had frozen food in our back seat. So I grabbed it to take inside our apartment before it thawed and tried to avoid S as much as possible. She tried to grab my wrist and force me to look at her whilst still screaming at me. I started to cry and ripped my hand away. Now, in the flight response to her being a danger to me, I ran to the front door of my apartment. This, at the time 56-year-old woman, started chasing after me, screeching that I wasn't raised right by my shitty mother, not her mother, we only share a dad. So she had to do it instead. I ran into my apartment and quickly locked the door behind me while she banged and rammed into it. Shortly after, scared out of my mind, I called our dad to ask if he had any semblance of a clue why S was acting like this and to let him know what was going on. While that was happening, she was physically assaulting my BF in the backyard for trying to stop her. Our dad had no idea why S was acting the way she was, but stated that she had just gotten back from the airport that afternoon. She was an essential worker during COVID. While I was still on the phone with him having a panic attack, S came storming down the stairs that I forgot the door at the top that connects our living spaces doesn't lock. She proceeded to try and rip my phone out of my hand, so I threw it across the room and then she grabbed me by my arms super hard and lifted me up, shook me, and screamed in my face. I don't remember what she said because I was so terrified. S finally let go after I told her that she was a shitty sister and just an all-around horrible person for what she was doing to me, and my BF tried to pull her off. S went upstairs after that, and I started sobbing uncontrollably. As you can probably predict, I felt extremely unsafe in my own apartment, since the aforementioned door that connected our spaces didn't have a lock, so my BF and I escaped to my mom's house for the night. She got the lowdown on everything that happened, and my dad got a retelling on the phone. My mom was rightfully pissed at the whole situation and my dad was apologetic, but otherwise didn't do or say much. I went back the next day with BF in tow to figure out if living there was worth it still. Spoiler, it wasn't, so we immediately started packing to move. The day we were putting everything in a U-Haul to move, a week after the incident, S taped a letter to my door, and long story short, the letter had no apology, and she blamed her actions on me, stating that she would only communicate with me going forward if it involved our dad. There was a PS at the end from my BF that said she apologizes for touching him. We moved and lived pretty far away from her from that day forward. I went to lots of therapy to deal with the fallout of it all, and I haven't spoken or looked at, if I had to be in the same room as her, once since. So, you'd think it was all over, right? Wrong, because last Christmas, 2024, she called me on Christmas Day and left me a voicemail. The voicemail goes something like this: "Hey, I'd like to extend an apology to you for the event that occurred and hopefully we can get past it. For Dad, you don't have to call me back or anything, just wanted to send that out to you. Merry Christmas." So, would I be the AH for telling her basically to F off or ignoring it entirely and still going with the whole "I don't have an older sister" thing I've been doing for almost 5 years now? Stories number 32. Getting real sick of men complaining their partner grew up and isn't frisky anymore. So many subs full of men asking for advice, because 5, 10, 20 years ago they started dating a 14, 18, 21-year-old, and back then she was wild and free and frisky, but now she isn't anymore. Bonus rage points if the complaint includes lack of initiating unreciprocated blowjobs. My guys, this isn't rocket science. She grew up, you dated a teen/baby adult, now she's a real adult. Obviously she's not the same, she's got grown-up priorities, and energy, and needs. Use your brains. Think about it for just 5 minutes. Edit. Yes, there's lots of reasons beyond growing up, and yes, women can have healthy libidos as they age. I was just venting about one thing that grinds my gears. Stories number 33. Girlfriend threatens me to kill herself if I meet any of my friends in person. Basically, the title sums it up. My girlfriend, 23F, has sociopathic tendencies and doesn't want me, 24M, to see any of my friends. She believes that a relationship should be the only meaningful connection a person needs. I, on the other hand, want to maintain healthy relationships with people I care about. I don't think being in a relationship should mean cutting off your friends. Recently, she gave me an ultimatum. If I go out with my friends, it will hurt her so deeply that she says she will commit suicide. Ordinarily, I would break up, but she threatens to kill herself if I do. I can't bear the idea of living with the guilt of someone I once loved taking such an action. At the same time, I feel trapped in this relationship, which makes me deeply unhappy and suffocated, like living in a cage. How should I approach this? At this point, I'm totally clueless about what to do. For some additional context, she refuses to go to therapy because, according to her, she is normal. My need to have other people is something weird. Her logic is something like, if you go out with other people, it means you prefer spending time with them over me, which means I'm not the most important person in your life. Edit. I know that leaving this relationship is the only option. Don't worry, I'm asking about how should I approach leaving a suicidal partner. I know that this relationship is toxic and it's impossible to get it on the right track at this point. Stories number 34. My boyfriend of 2 years is ghosting me. It's been 3 weeks since I've heard from him. I'm also pregnant. He went away for the Christmas holidays to his mom's to spend the holidays with his family and kids. I was more than happy for him while I spent mine with my son and my family. Our first Christmas without my grandmother, we were fine. His depression has made him a shell of who is though, and we were trying to get through it, we said. After the holidays, we'll get on to it. He stopped talking to me 2 days into his trip. He's read my messages telling him I'm pregnant, ignoring all of my calls. His social media is active, Facebook, but it still says we're together, and I'm still logged into his Facebook as we share his for my daily meme dose. I got zooked LMAO. I just don't know what to do. I'm 7 weeks pregnant and now I don't know if I want to raise this baby alone. We were actively trying to conceive too. I'm a fucking mess. I guess I just wanted to vent. I've got no one else to talk to. Stories number 35. AITJ for telling my dad I'd put him in a nursing home. TLDR. I came out to my dad. He exploded on me. It made me bring up the terrible things he did. I told him I'd put him in a nursing home and hoped he'd die alone. I, 22F, have been dating a woman for about 5 years despite my hesitation. I told my father 61M because I still have a semblance of affection for him and I'll be buying a ring soon. He reacted as I expected and went on a rant about how terrible my sexuality was and how I was faking it to piss him off. I am not here to argue about sexuality. It came around to the point where I told him I'd bring my girlfriend. Just to prove it, he said something around the lines of, if you show up I'll beat you both, to which I said I returned the favor. He got really offended, extremely angry as per usual, and went on a rant about how disrespectful I was, and telling me he deserved my respect as my father. It triggered some ugly memories. I can't quite go in detail, but he's always been an angry person, scary one moment then love bombing the next. All my teenage years, my sister and I put up with him with the hope he'd change back to my loving childhood father. 13 marriages, 12 children, and the only 2 kids he raises are taught to fear him. I was really tired at that point, so I told him I didn't want him to attend any more of my events, including walking me down the aisle one day. I told him he was a terrible person and didn't deserve the love of a child, and I wished he'd left us like the other 10 kids. That I hoped he'd die sad and alone in a nursing home. My mom called a couple times, asking me to apologize because he lost his daughter, and was warning me that I shouldn't have said what I said. AITJ. Edit. In regards to his marriages, he's been getting married since he was about 17. Mexico had pretty lax marriage laws. 13 is the estimate based on what family and half-brothers tell me. Stories number 36. My mom demands I move out of my apartment because my neighbor is too attractive. Okay, so this just happened, and I'm still in shock. I, 25F, moved into a nice apartment a few months ago. It's a great place, safe neighborhood, decent rent, and I even get along with my neighbors. One of them, let's call him Jake, is a super chill guy about my age. We've chatted a few times, and he's just friendly. That's it, nothing romantic or weird. Yesterday, my mom came over for a visit. She took one look at Jake as he was leaving his apartment, and her whole demeanor changed. She asked me, "Who's that?" I told her he was my neighbor, and she immediately started grilling me. "Do you like him? Are you dating him? Are you sleeping with him?" I laughed and said, "No, Mom, he's just my neighbor." I thought that was the end of it. Nope. This morning, she called me at 7 a.m. and said she had been thinking all night and decided I had to move. Why? Because Jake is too attractive, and it's only a matter of time before he seduces you and ruins your life. I was like, what? She went on a rant about how men like him only have one thing on their minds, and how I was too naive to see it. I tried to tell her that Jake and I barely even talk, but she wasn't having it. Then she said, and I kid you not, if you don't move out by next month, I'll have to come over and take care of him myself. What does that even mean? I told her she was being ridiculous and hung up. She blew up my phone with messages like, "You're disrespecting me, I'm only trying to protect you, and, you'll thank me one day. And I blocked her number and went no contact because she does ridiculous shit like this all the time, Aita. Also let me know if any of you want more stories. TLDR, mom is weird about neighbor get no contacted. This was a non-major organization reporter project. This was to see how many people out of 100 can tell the difference between human and AI made social media. So far as of January 21st, 2025 it's been about 34 people per 100. Also as a note from the person that had to make the account and make it look believable, this is how many posts are starting to seem. Please be wary of AI. Note that it was purely just a study. Results were based from comments and up/down votes. Please be respectful to people who actually go through this type of thing. Also we only expected around 1,000 or so people to see and comment, so thank you for the extra info. Goodbye. Stories number 37. I broke up with her. I instantly regretted it. I broke up with my GF last night. I did it because she says she needed space and was stressed over many things including work and family. We have only been dating for 6 months, but she has never asked for space in the beginning of our relationship, and until about a month ago or so we were always together every day and slept together. So when she said she needs space, I thought of the worst and that she was drifting apart. Rather than let her break up with me, I thought I'd pull the plug first, so I did. I went over and told her that she might do better with someone else. She instantly became upset and stated that I don't listen to her and she needed space because we are together too much and she has too many things going on at work and family, which they live many states apart. After explaining herself a little more, I realized I fucked up. This woman was trying to fix herself and instead I was impatient and let that get to my head. I instantly told her that I take it back, but she said no, it's not the first time I've ever mentioned separating, and she has forgiven me before for saying it, but this time was different. She didn't take me back like usual and said she was holding me accountable for what I said. I realize how flawed I am, but I do love her. I realize that I have too many issues that I have to fix, but I want to fix them with her, but I feel it's too late. I have been feeling terrible and told her if she could think about. She said not right now. I'm not sure what to do. I know I put myself in this situation, but I want her back. I'm not sure how to go about it and she makes me so happy. It's only been a day, but my mind is restless. I don't know what to do to fix this or if it's even fixable. I'm giving her her space, as she's been asking, but I want her back. Stories number 38. AIO for initiating divorce after seeing my husband's subreddit history. My husband and I have been together for a decade, married for 5 years with 1 kid. He's recently sober, or was. At first, after he quit drinking, everything was great between us. He was helping out around the house and more involved with our kid. Sex life had went from nothing to almost daily. Then one day he's playing video games and has completely stopped doing anything but sleeping and playing his game and sitting on his headset for 5 to 12 hours a day. I felt like he was hiding something, or depressed, or both. Initially, I felt like he was hiding weed usage or something. Then he mentioned a girl that he plays his game with and I thought maybe emotional affair. I tried talking to him about what was going on. Why had he disappeared into his office? He basically just brushed me off. So I snooped to see if I could find what caused the complete 180. Luckily, I guess, he left his phone at home when he left the house for a bit. I looked through his Discord and DMs on his gaming PC. All the hiding places in his office. I found out he drank 354 milliliters bottle of Fireball in one night. I also found the receipt. Then I looked through his phone at his messages and Snapchat and Reddit and found in his most recent subreddit list 5 different casual hookup subreddits for our town. One didn't exist when I clicked on it. I don't know if he actually met anyone, but now I feel like I can't trust anything he does. I reached out to my lawyer today to start the divorce process. AIO for jumping to that step before asking him about it. Update. I asked him about it. At first he tried to tell me I didn't see what I saw, but then he said that it was from before I told him he had to stop drinking, a few months ago, because he thought we were over at that point. He could tell I was fed up. I asked him why wouldn't he talk to me, and he said he's not very good at it. He's left to stay with family until we can work out logistics. Stories number 39. 4-year-old daughter was diagnosed with autism this morning and I feel like a weight has been lifted. I've known since she was as young as 6 months old that she wouldn't hold eye contact as she started developing. Her fine motor skills were advanced, but her speech and interacting with others fell short. I've been told by multiple people that maybe she's just developing slowly. Don't compare her to other children. Blah blah blah. There are certain milestones children are supposed to meet that she wasn't meeting. I got told by a regional center that she didn't qualify for services after he only spent 30 minutes observing her. She's in preschool now. Her teacher noticed her behaviors and recommended a case manager. After 2 hours of observations and her IEP test, she qualified for the program and they told me she's autistic. I'm just happy that I can finally get the help I need for her moving forward.